Chapter 1295. Suppressing the Dharma Characteristic Ranking. Chapter 1295. Suppressing the Dharma Characteristic Ranking. Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics were the strongest methods of Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. An 88 feet tall Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was legendary, and if this was the previous Dharma characteristic ranking, it would definitely be ranked at the top. But now, the rainbow glass body was shattered by a dharmic art from Xueqi. Ignoring the level of that dharmic art, the dharmic powers released by that attack were way too terrifying. Even an 88 feet tall Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic could not withstand it. Blood drained from the face of Tao Lord Feng Chen as he retreated and nearly fell from midair. All his pride had vanished completely against Xueqi's punch. No, Desolate Martial isn't at the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm. The moment Xueqi attacked, there was no way he could hide his cultivation realm. Perfected Dharma characteristic realm. This Desolate Martial has only advanced to the Dharma characteristic realm slightly more than 100 years ago, and he's already at the perfected Dharma characteristic realm. As expected of the #1 monster incarnate of history, his cultivation speed is way too terrifying. A wave of shock and astonishment could be heard from the crowd. The dharmic powers of Xueqi's perfected Dharma characteristic realm after tempering his essence spirit from the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects were unimaginably vast and were far beyond the Dharma characteristic realm. They were comparable to any conjoint body mighty figure present. All of you get lost. Xueqi's gaze was like lightning as he looked at Tao Lord Five Thunder and the other Dharma characteristic Tao Lords and said coldly. In reality, those Dharma characteristic Tao Lords were already stunned by Xueqi's punch and did not dare to act rashly. However, all of them were paragons and monster incarnates of the cultivation world after all. No one would be able to take it lying down if they were scolded in front of everyone. Desolate Martial, aren't you way too arrogant? Tao Lord Five Thunder harumphed coldly. Right now, all the super sects are gathered with paragons. You're only at the Dharma characteristic realm. So what if you're strong? That means I can suppress you with my strength. Xueqi was focused on Night Spirit and was unwilling to get entangled with those Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. Without a second word, he conjured the Immortal Trap Seal and sent it towards Tao Lord Five Thunder. All right. Tao Lord Five Thunder was fearless as well and hollered. Let's see how long you can continue to be arrogant, Desolate Martial. Boom! Suddenly, a gigantic phantom appeared from Tao Lord Five Thunder's body and rose to 80 feet instantly. Furthermore, it showed no signs of stopping. In the blink of an eye, a Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic that was surrounded by wind and thunder descended in midair, even taller than the rainbow glass body earlier on. 89 feet. 1,000 years ago, this Zephyr Thunder Dharmic body was merely 84 feet tall. Now, Tao Lord Five Thunder had already condensed his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic to a height of 89 feet. Desolate Martial, pay with your life for killing 2 monster incarnates of Chaos Essence Sect. On the other side, a Tao Lord of Chaos Essence Sect stood out and released his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic right away. Boom! A phantom soared into the skies. In the blink of an eye, it had grown to a height of 84 feet. Chaos Essence Chi Body. Desolate Martial, I heard that you've got more than one Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic. I want to see it for myself today as well. A Tao Lord of Heavenly Dipper Sect stood out and released his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic as well. A 85 feet Heavenly Dipper body. Bang, bang, bang. Illusion Fiend Dharma body. 18 meters metal body. Startling sword body. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords appeared and formed an encirclement around Xueqi. One after another, Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics stood in midair with terrifying auras. They're joining forces to deal with Desolate Martial. These Dharma characteristic Tao Lords are definitely ranked at the top of the Dharma characteristic ranking in terms of combat strength. To think that the fight for the Dharma characteristic ranking would turn out like this. Suddenly, Immortal Sword stifled a chuckle when he saw that. Elder Immortal Sword, what's wrong? The disciple behind Immortal Sword, who is also a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord, asked softly. Immortal Sword shook his head gently and curled his lips with a mocking expression. These Dharma characteristic Tao Lords are no match for Desolate Martial. If anyone present knew Su Zimo's combat strength the best, Immortal Sword would definitely be one of them. That was because he was nearly killed by Su Zimo in the bamboo forest. Then why didn't you stop those Tao Lords, Master? The disciple asked again. Immortal Sword smiled without saying anything. Right then, Heavenly Secrets looked over and the two of them exchanged glances with a tacit understanding. There was naturally no way they would step in to stop it. The more ruthless Desolate Marshal fought against the Dharma characteristic Tao Lords, the more there was no room for negotiation between him and the super sects. At that time, Desolate Marshal would become the enemy of the entire world. It wouldn't matter if he was the strongest monster incarnate in history or if he had imparted martial arts to all living beings, everything would just be a joke. On the battlefield. The moment the Immortal Trap Seal descended, it was destroyed by the 89 feet tall Zephyr Thunder Dermic body. This Zephyr Thunder Dermic body was extremely close to a supreme Dharma characteristic and its dermic powers were pure to the extreme. Among the Daming Dermic Seals, the Immortal Trap Seal's power was average. That was why it could not take on Tao Lord 5 Thunder's Zephyr Thunder Dermic body. Ha 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 ha. Tao Lord 5 Thunder reared his head in laughter. That's all there is to Desolate Marshal. That's all. Su Zimo sneered as well. The dermic seal in his hands changed and he bent his fingers, as though he was conjuring a wheel, condensing a strange dermic seal that smashed towards the Zephyr Thunder dermic body. Among the Daming Dermic Seals, one of the two most ferocious and powerful dermic seals, the Great Vajra Wheel Seal. Boom! There was a deafening sound. An incomparably gigantic golden wheel appeared in midair, crushing forward continuously with a shuddering aura. The void beneath the golden wheel trembled and distorted. It was as though nothing could stop the gigantic golden wheel. Not even the 89 feet tall Zephyr Thunder Dermic body. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the Great Vajra Wheel Seal collided against the Zephyr Thunder Dermic body. Crack, crack, crack. A jarring sound echoed from the Zephyr Thunder Dermic body as cracks appeared on its surface and spread continuously, covering its entire body instantly. Its dermic powers drained rapidly. Pest! The crowd was shocked. The 89 feet tall Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was shattered by a single dermic seal from Su Zimo as well. Tao Lord 5 Thunder was shocked and spat out an arrow of blood. At the same time, the dozens of Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics that were more than 80 feet tall around Su Zimo moved at the same time and charged towards him. Su Zimo's gaze intensified as he channeled his essence spirit and conjured hand seals with both hands, conjuring terrifying dermic arts instantly. Endless dermic powers surged towards Su Zimo. Even the dermic powers of the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics were forcibly drawn over by Su Zimo. The dermic powers in Su Zimo's hands were almost boiling. Great Mount Meru Seal. Sandstorm. Avicii. Mighty Heavenly Dragon Transcendence. Sea Burial Secret Skill. Apocalyptic Fiend Fist. Instantly, Su Zimo released more than 10 terrifying top-grade dermic arts and collided against the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics. Boom! The void seemed to explode instantly. A blinding semicircular light spread out suddenly with a heat wave. An incomparably domineering aftershock swept in all directions like a tornado. The cultivators retreated. Even some conjoint body mighty figures were shocked and retreated to avoid him. Was that the power of a Dharma characteristic? Before long, the dust cleared. In midair, there was only a figure in green robes. His black hair danced and his gaze was burning, emitting a powerful aura that swept through the 9 heavens and 10 earths like an emperor that was peerless. More than 10 Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics shattered. Instantly, the entire Heaven and Earth Valley fell silent. Everyone realized that Tao Lord Desolate Marshal had suppressed all the paragons on the Dharma characteristic ranking single-handedly. Chapter 1296. Enemy of the World. Chapter 1296. Enemy of the World. Swoosh. A glass light suddenly descended with a sharp killing intent, almost tearing through the void as it smashed down towards Su Zimo's head. The glass light seemed to carry the might of heaven and earth and was unstoppable. Conjoint body mighty figure. Desolate Marshal is invincible among the Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. In the end, the conjoint body mighty figures can't sit by idly. The mighty figure of Glass Palace is trying to kill Desolate Marshal directly. The crowd was in an uproar. All of a sudden. Suddenly, a black shadow flew out from the crowd on the other side and struck the glass light. There was a loud bang. The black shadow revealed its true form. It was a gigantic weapon tripod. On the other side, the conjoint body mighty figure that attacked shuddered and staggered a few steps back. He had a terrible expression as he glared in the direction of the weapon tripod. Extreme fire! The Glass Palace mighty figure grit his teeth and spat out. It was only then that many cultivators realized what was happening. In that split second earlier, the mighty figure of Glass Palace wanted to kill Su Zimo, but the latter was saved by mighty figure Extreme Fire of 100 Refinement Sect. What are you trying to do? Extreme Fire stood up slowly and his eyes seemed to be burning with flames. Today is the fight for the Dharma characteristic ranking. Earlier on, I didn't say anything even when many Dharma characteristic Tao Lords surrounded Zimo together shamelessly. And now, even a conjoint body mighty figure wants to be equally shameless? Extreme Fire. This has nothing to do with the fight for the Dharma characteristic ranking today. This is a feud between super sects like us and Desolate Marshal. A mighty figure of Heavenly Dipper sect stood out with an unfriendly expression as well. A mighty figure of Chaos Essence sect had a murderous aura and said coldly, "That's right. The feud between us and Desolate Marshal has to end today." It's fine to end a feud. Extreme Fire said, the cultivation world is filled with strife and it's inevitable for there to be friendships and feuds. However, if you guys want to bully others with numbers and seniority, I'm not going to let that happen as long as I'm here. Extreme Fire, let me advise you not to get involved. Immortal Sword laughed coldly at the side. Nobody will be able to protect Desolate Marshal today. He'll definitely die. Extreme Fire put away his weapon tripod without any fear in his eyes as he said slowly, "Why? You so-called orthodox sects don't even know shame anymore?" A group of conjoint body mighty figures are actually joining forces to deal with a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord. Is this how righteous immortal sects are? A mighty figure of Snowdrift Valley stood out. It's the fortune of all living beings that Desolate Marshal was able to establish the martial Tao and impart martial arts to all living beings. He established that eternal steel with incredible merit. If you guys insist on making things difficult for him, won't you be disappointing the hearts of all cultivators in the world? That's right. A mighty figure from one of the immortal sects, Clear Wind Temple, nodded as well. Although it's a personal feud, what does it mean if a few conjoint body mighty figures of the immortal, Fiend and Buddhist sects join forces to deal with a single Dharma characteristic Tao Lord? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the future generation? Not all the super sects of the 9 immortal sects were against Su Zimo. A mighty figure of Pure Maiden sect stood out as well and sneered. Although those from the immortal sects speak of benevolence and Tao, they're filled with scheming and conniving plots. What a joke. Amitba. A mighty figure of Dapamkara Monastery chanted a Buddhist proclamation softly as well. Patron Desolate Marshal has supreme merit in giving to all living beings. Indeed, you guys should not be doing this. The impact of Desolate Marshal establishing a Tao and imparting martial arts to all living beings was way too great for the cultivation world and Tianhuang mainland. That single incident pushed Su Zimo's reputation to its peak. Before long, 2 factions were formed among the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sections. The people who wanted to kill Su Zimo were naturally led by Immortal Sword. Extreme Fire and the others were on Su Zimo's side. Of course, although the mighty figures of Snowdrift Valley and Clear Wind Temple were willing to speak up for Su Zimo, they might not wage war against the other mighty figures for the sake of Desolate Marshal. Things are getting more interesting. The Golden Crow Third Prince clapped excitedly when he saw the chaos in the human cultivation world. I truly don't understand how we were defeated in the ancient war given the state of the human race. Rakshasa Feng Tian sneered. Piak, piak. While the 2 sides were in a stalemate, someone clapped from the side, attracting the gazes of many cultivators. Heavenly Secrets finally stood out. Ever since Su Zimo appeared, he had been watching coldly from the sidelines. Now that the situation was tense, he had to step in. Everyone, there's no need to argue. Heavenly Secrets smiled indifferently. Why don't we ask Tao Lord Desolate Marshal first? If you aren't here for the fight for the Dharma characteristic ranking today, what are you here for? That question was the key. Zimo did not hesitate and sneered, pointing at Night Spirit beneath Immortal sword and the others. There's nothing to hide. I'm here today to take him away. Ah! The moment he said that, a cry sounded from the crowd. Night Spirit was a cruel and cold-blooded primordial taboo. Apart from the fight for the Dharma characteristic ranking, all the cultivators gathered here today were here to witness Night Spirit's death. But now, Zimo had openly declared that he wanted to take away that extremely dangerous primordial taboo. Good. The smile in Heavenly Secrets' eyes intensified. As expected of Desolate Marshal. You're truly open and honest. A primordial taboo was the enemy of all 10,000 races. Zimo's action was equivalent to standing opposite the 10,000 races. Nobody dared to imagine what sort of a bloodbath that primordial taboo would cause in Tianhuang mainland if it was alive. That was an uncertain danger. It had to be killed. The Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects did not doubt that at all. This time round, even the mighty figure of Snowdrift Valley frowned and reminded, Desolate Marshal, don't be foolish. If you want to save him, no one can save you. Those were truly earnest words. Unfortunately, Zimo was determined. He had made many preparations, including his trump card, the Dragon Truebody. There was no way he would back down. Extreme Fire's expression turned grim as well. Zimo, you have to think carefully about the possible consequences of your decision. Extreme Fire sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. At that time, you'll turn the entire world against you. Even I won't be able to protect you. Even if you manage to escape, you might not survive in Tianhuang mainland. I know. Zimo replied indifferently, Master. There's no need to say more. This is my decision. There's no need for you and 100 Refinement sect to interfere. Senior Crane, Nian Qi, there's no need for you guys to attack either. Turning around, Zimo said to everyone from Ethereal Peak. Thereafter, he looked at Demonis G of Pure Maiden sect and shook his head slowly. Zimo knew that if he chose to save Night Spirit, people like Extreme Fire and the others would stand by his side without hesitation as well. However, those people would definitely fall into the vortex and might be minced to death. That was because he knew that the enemies this time round were not only conjoint body mighty figures of Sword Sect and Chaos Essence Sect, but also the ferocious beings of the primordial 9 races that were hidden among the cultivators. That was the reason why Zimo did not inform Monkey and the others about Night Spirit's capture. Chapter 1297. Time for you to pay with your life. Chapter 1297. Time for you to pay with your life. Everyone, you heard it too. Desolate Marshal clearly knows that this beast is a taboo that wreaked havoc in the primordial era, but he still wants to save it. What are your intentions, Desolate Marshal? Heavenly Secrets asked indifferently. Amitba. Patron Desolate Marshal. This matter is extremely important. If this taboo grows up, it'll probably cause endless bloodshed in Tianhuang mainland. The monk of Formless Monastery shook his head gently. That's right, we can't let it go. This beast is savage and has a murderous nature. If we let it go, there will definitely be trouble and no one in Tianhuang mainland will be spared. The crowd was in a frenzy. In reality, many cultivators did not understand the taboo race at all and did not have any deep feud with Night Spirit. The reason why they stood out was merely out of fear towards Night Spirit. Suddenly, Zimo laughed with a mocking expression and surveyed his surroundings. You guys said that he's savage and murderous. Now, let me ask you guys, back in Myriad Phenomenon City when the Rakshasa and God race massacred human cultivators, who was the one who stood out to suppress them? Was it you? How about you? Zimo pointed at the crowd and shouted. The crowd was silent. No one replied. Although most of the cultivators present had not experienced the battle in Myriad Phenomenon City, they had a rough understanding of what happened. If not for Zimo and Night Spirit, the human paragons would have been annihilated and buried in Myriad Phenomenon City. Even if the ancestor of Night Spirit was violent and brutal in the primordial era, what has that got to do with him? Zimo said, I watched Night Spirit grow up since he was young. Although he's good at killing, He never kills for no reason. Still nobody spoke. Su Zimo looked around. A dense crowd of cultivators stood in Heaven and Earth Valley. Although there were many sects and factions gathered, most of the cultivators looked indifferent. Nobody was willing to listen to his logic. In the hearts of many cultivators, their first impression had already taken root. Su Zimo shook his head gently. He knew that there was no need to explain further. Fufu, that's easy for you to say. The mighty figure of Heavenly Dipper sect sneered. A leopard never changes its spots. This beast's bloodline is filled with killing and bloodthirst. It'll be too late by the time he starts his massacre. Desolate Marshal, you have to think carefully and not be foolish. Out of goodwill, the mighty figure of Snowdrift Valley said in a deep voice. Even if you can't bear to see him in trouble, it's impossible to save him. Everyone's gathered today. Notwithstanding the Dharma characteristic Tao Lords present, look at the number of conjoint body mighty figures from the super sects such as the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects as well as the 5 heretical doctrines. Notwithstanding the fact that you won't be able to save Night Spirit, even if you manage to do so, you won't be able to escape. Extreme Fire was not the only one. Even the mighty figure of Snowdrift Valley could tell. The reason why so many conjoint body mighty figures of Sword Sect, Chaos Essence Sect and the other Immortal sects were here was most likely to deal with Su Zimo. An impenetrable trap had been set up here a long time ago such that even ants could not escape. As long as Su Zimo dared to attack, he would definitely die. Most importantly, killing Night Spirit today was the main purpose of everyone. Anyone that stood out to stop that would be crushed into dust. Extreme Fire could not do it. Even 100 Refinement sect behind him could not do it. In the face of the tides, those that obeyed flourished and those that countered died. Keep an eye on Xiaoning and don't let her leave at all. The mighty figure of Elixir Yang sect said slowly. Yao Yen, you're not allowed to attack either. The mighty figure of Pure Maiden sect said slowly. The only thing Pure Maiden sect and Elixir Yang sect could do was to help neither side. The current situation was extremely obvious. Whoever dared to help Desolate Marshal would become a great enemy for super sects like Sword Sect and Chaos Essence Sect. Furthermore, Enigma Palace was the host of this matter. Enigma Palace had an extraordinary status in Tianhuang mainland, and most cultivators would not question it. Extreme Fire had a grim expression. He had not expected that today's matter would turn into a situation where there was no room for negotiation. First, you should leave. Right then Night Spirit gulped and said. The iron hoops that were initially around his neck shrank once more as sharp spikes protruded with fresh blood flowing out. Under the restriction of the heavenly god lock, Night Spirit had to endure endless pain for every single word he said. However, he still raised his head and looked at Su Zimo in the distance despite the wound tearing. First, they want to deal with you. Don't fall for it. Don't worry, Night Spirit, I'll definitely take you away. Su Zimo's gaze turned increasingly cold as he looked at the blood on Night Spirit's body. The killing intent around him was almost materialized. One after another, gigantic stars appeared in the firmaments. Tisk, TSK. Your brotherhood sure runs deep. Immortal Sword sneered. That's perfect. I'll send the 2 of you to hell today. Anyone unrelated to today's matter, make way. Su Zimo was filled with killing intent as he said coldly. I'm going to take Night Spirit away with me today. I'll kill anyone who stops me. What a bold claim. Chaos Essence Sect's mighty figure sneered. Who do you think you are? You think you're strong enough to go against the entire world? Heavenly Secret said indifferently. I'll say this as well. Whoever helps Desolate Marshal will be going against the entire cultivation world, the human race and the 10,000 races of the world. They will be punished by the world. Ha ha ha. Immortal Sword burst into laughter. Desolate Marshal, you can't even protect yourself. Yet you want to kill others? How laughable. Immortal Sword, it's time for you to pay with your life. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded from outside the crowd. It was hoarse and deep, but it possessed a terrifying fiend power. Who is there? Immortal Sword panicked and shouted instinctively. Although that voice sounded familiar, he could not believe it. Who would dare to stand out at a moment like this? All the cultivators turned towards the voice as well. In the void not far away, A black-robed cultivator walked over slowly. His white hair fell to his shoulders and his eyes were pitch black. His hands were slumped, and in his right hand, there was a saber that was coiled with fiend chi. Ah, it's the Azura. What Azura? It's Yen Beichen. Isn't Yen Beichen already dead? The Azura saber has already returned to Azura sect, and the current Azura is already someone else. The crowd discussed. Su Zimo glanced at the Azura and his heart ached. After not seeing him for nearly 100 years, the Azura's hair had turned white. It was unknown what sort of pain he had endured alone all these years. But your essence spirit injury. Impossible. Immortal Sword looked at Yen Beichen, who was walking over slowly in disbelief, and shrieked. He discovered to his shock that Yen Beichen's essence spirit had already recovered. Yen Beichen backed down. You're a cultivator of Azura sect. Don't implicate the entire sect because of you. A Dharma characteristic Tao Lord of Azura sect stood out and hollered at Yen Beichen with a cold expression. The mighty figure of Azura sect did not stop him, as though it was only right. Who are you? Yen Beichen's gaze shifted as he asked expressionlessly. I'm the Azura of the current era. The Dharma characteristic Tao Lord had a proud expression and flipped his palm, already holding the Azura saber. Someone like you is worthy of being called the Azura? Yen Beichen slashed in reverse towards the Dharma characteristic Tao Lord's head. A black light tore through the air with a suffocating aura of death. Before the titular disciple who referred to himself as the Azura could react, he was sliced into two by Yen Beichen, and his body and essence spirit were destroyed. Chapter 1298. Massive Battles. Chapter 1298. Massive Battle. Pest. The place fell into an uproar. Nobody expected Yen Beichen to attack. Less than that, nobody expected the titular disciple of Azura sect, the Azura of this generation, to fail to defend against a single slash from Yen Beichen. How ruthless! This is what it means to become an Azura through killing. When the Azura goes crazy, he even kills cultivators of his own sect. He's truly fearless and cold-blooded. Many cultivators discussed softly with wary expressions. Yen Beichen, what are you doing? The mighty figure of Azura sect was enraged and pointed at the sect cultivator who had just fallen, shouting, I can ignore the fact that you killed him. The fight for the Azura has always been about killing. However, you're not allowed to interfere in today's matter. Do you want to go against the entire cultivation world? So, Yen Beichen replied indifferently. You. The mighty figure of Azura sect was speechless. Su Zimo was probably the only one who could understand Yen Beichen's emotions. Qin Pianran died and the Hatred Fiend Saber acknowledged Yen Beichen as its master. He obtained the Hatred Sutra and inherited the entire legacy of the Fiend Emperor Hatred. He hated the heavens for being blind and the earth for being heartless. He hated the entire cultivation world for refusing to let them off. It did not matter even if he was enemies with the entire cultivation world. If there was a single person in this world without fear and reservations, it would be the Azura, Yen Beichen. Yen Beichen looked at Immortal Sword and said slowly, Immortal Sword, I've waited for so long. You're finally willing to come out. All these years, Yen Beichen had been waiting for an opportunity. Although he inherited the Hatred Sutra, he did not lose his rationality. If he killed his way into Sword sect recklessly, not only would he not be able to take revenge for Qin Pianran, he would also die. Yen Beichen had waited for almost 100 years for this day. He would definitely not miss this opportunity. It was as Su Zimo thought, he would kill anyone who dared to stand in his way. Azura, even if you advance to the conjoint body realm, it's impossible for you to kill me. The moment Yen Beichen attacked earlier on, Immortal Sword could already sense that Yen Beichen was already a conjoint body mighty figure. However, on second thought, he knew that many major sects were gathered. Notwithstanding immortal sects like Chaos Essence sect and Heavenly Dipper sect, Sword sect alone had more than 30 conjoint body mighty figures gathered this time round. Yen Beichen was only at the early stage conjoint body realm. Even if he was strong, how many conjoint body mighty figures could he defeat? Furthermore, he was surrounded by experts of the primordial 6 races. Yen Beichen's gaze shifted to heavenly secrets. You were the one who divined our location and told it to Immortal Sword, right? He was no fool. He had been wondering since a long time ago how his location with Qin Pianran was leaked. There must be an expert behind it. Right now, he had a guess when he saw Heavenly Secrets join forces with Immortal Sword. So what if I am? Heavenly Secrets still had a smile on his face. I once swore that I won't let anyone related to Pianran's death off. Yen Beichen said, Heavenly Secrets, you're next after Immortal Sword. The moment he said that, Yen Beichen's figure flashed and vanished from the spot, turning into rumbling fiend chi that was pitch black as ink that surged towards the Sword Sect faction. Senior brothers, help me stop him. Immortal Sword said with a calm expression. Although he was a conjoint body mighty figure, his essence spirit was injured and he did not dare to fight Yen Beichen head-on. He could only ask for the help of other mighty figures in Sword Sect. Don't worry, junior brother. He's just a fiend at the early stage conjoint body realm. There's nothing to fear. A mighty figure of Sword Sect sneered and leaped into midair with his sword, slashing down viciously at the fiend chi beneath. Clang! The sword beam was resplendent and carried an extremely sharp edge, as though it wanted to slice the entire world into two. The Dharma characteristic Tao Lords present did not even manage to see how the mighty figure of Sword Sect attacked. They felt their eyes sting with just a mere glance from afar. The might of a single slash was so terrifying. Swoosh! The fiend chi beneath surged without dodging or retreating and devoured the sword beam directly. The mighty figure of Sword Sect's expression changed. His sword was swallowed by a ball of fiend chi like a rock that fell into the ocean. Instead, the ball of fiend chi became even more terrifying and floated rapidly, charging towards the mighty figure of Sword Sect. Startling Sword Dao. The mighty figure of Sword Sect hollered and waved the sword in his hands. Instantly, streams of sword chi burst forth in a breathtaking and sharp manner, piercing into the incoming fiend chi. The fiend chi merely paused for a moment before extending upwards. Under countless gazes, it opened up a gigantic black hole and dragged the mighty figure of Sword Sect inside. Ah! A tragic cry sounded from the fiend chi. Immediately after, a corpse fell from the fiend chi. The mighty figure of Sword Sect's eyes were widened and his cheeks were filled with black blood threads. His gaze was filled with endless fear, as though he was immensely shocked before his death. He died with grievances. Hatred Fiend Sutra. Heavenly Secrets focused his gaze and exclaimed slightly when he recognized the origin of the ball of fiend chi. The expressions of the cultivators changed when they heard that. The Fiend Emperor Hatred was way too famous in the cultivation world. Among the emperors, the title of the Fiend Emperor Hatred was not inferior to the Human Emperor. All of you, join forces. There's no need to fight him alone. Immortal Sword reminded hurriedly. Many mighty figures of Sword Sect reacted and struck as well. Shoo! 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 Instantly, the entire world was enveloped by streams of extremely sharp sword chi and the void seemed to be sliced into pieces. Sword Dao was the most lethal. At the same time, Sword Sect was the place of pilgrimage for all sword cultivators. The killing power released by more than 30 mighty figures of Sword Sect was imaginable, causing the cultivators present to shudder in fear. Many Dharma characteristic Tao Lords retreated, afraid that they would be implicated by the sword chi. Boundless hatred. Suddenly, a hoarse and deep voice sounded from the fiend chi. Immediately after, a pitch-black saber appeared in the world. It was coiled with fiend chi and emitted endless hatred. It was boundless and hated the entire world. Clang, 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 clang. The hatred fiend saber collided with many swords and let out a series of metallic sounds with sparks. Right in front of everyone, more than 30 swords were repelled by the hatred fiend saber. Every single sword was tainted by a layer of faint black fog and their lights dimmed significantly. Their strength was greatly reduced and even their sharpness was retracted. What? The combat strength of the Asura is actually at this level? More than 30 mighty figures of Sword Sect can't injure him. Yen Beichen possesses the Asura Sutra and now, he inherited the Hatred Sutra. He's probably even stronger than the Fiend Emperor Hatred back then. Sword Sect was in chaos. Right then, Su Zimo had already made his move as well and charged towards Night Spirit. Stop him! Desolate Marshal, I've been watching you the entire time. Dang. The conjoint body mighty figures of Chaos Essence Sect, Heavenly Dipper Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace and the other Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects attacked one after another to suppress Su Zimo. Zimo, let me help you. At the final moment, Extreme Fire stood out still. Although he had reservations, no matter what, Su Zimo saved his life. If not for Su Zimo, Extreme Fire would have died a long time ago. That reason alone was why Extreme Fire could not watch Su Zimo fight alone. Extreme Fire, I'm your opponent. Suddenly, a sinister and cold voice sounded not far away. Immediately after, a figure blocked in front of Extreme Fire. Chapter 1299, Terrifying Sword Art. Chapter 1299, Terrifying Sword Art. Purple Flame. Extreme Fire's gaze shifted onto the intruder and his eyes blazed with rage. How dare you show yourself? Purple Flame was originally a cultivator of 100 Refinement Sect and was Extreme Fire's senior brother. Later on, he betrayed the sect and founded Hellfire Hall. 50 years ago, Extreme Fire led cultivators into Hellfire Hall and suppressed the group of cultivators with a thunderous might. Purple Flame was severely injured and escaped with his life. In that battle, Hellfire Hall lost more than 10 conjoint body mighty figures and hundreds of Dharma characteristic Tao lords. Hellfire Hall was destroyed overnight. This battle could be considered as one of the rare few battles in the cultivation world in the past 100 years where Extreme Fire revealed his powerful methods to the cultivation world once again. To think that the Purple Flame would appear in Heaven and Earth Valley after recovering from his injuries after dozens of years. Junior brother, let's end the feud between us today. Purple Flame had a sinister voice and a venomous gaze. Extreme Fire's gaze focused and his expression changed slightly. Through his spirit consciousness detection, he discovered that Purple Flame was already at the perfected conjoint body realm. 50 years ago, Purple Flame was only at the late-stage conjoint body realm. After the conjoint body realm, it was extremely difficult to break through every single minor realm. Even with Extreme Fire's talent, his cultivation had hovered around the early-stage conjoint body realm for more than 100 years. Furthermore, Extreme Fire had severely injured Purple Flame. In just a few decades, Purple Flame's cultivation had broken through once more and he was at the perfected conjoint body realm. It was not hard to imagine that Purple Flame must have obtained a tremendous fortuitous encounter to be able to cultivate to this stage and make a comeback. Surprised, right? Purple Flame noticed the shock in Extreme Fire's eyes and grinned. I've always been the loser in our fights. However, I'll be the victor this time round. Furthermore, winning you once is more than enough. I won't give you a second chance. Whoosh. Purple Flame's glabella shone and a gigantic weapon tripod flew out. Under the tripod burned an extremely sinister hellfire that charged towards Extreme Fire. Go! Extreme Fire summoned his destiny dermic weapon as well and a gigantic weapon tripod descended. Raging flames burned on the tripod as well. However, the flames of Extreme Fire were even more scorching and masculine, as though they could incinerate everything in the world. Yin and Yang. The two different flames collided violently. Boom! With a loud bang, flames surged into the skies. It was as though two blazing suns had collided and shot out fireballs in all directions. There was even a fire rain in the skies. This was the combat strength of conjoint body mighty figures. Every single move could shake heaven and earth, crush mountains and crack rocks. Extreme Fire had a grim expression. In that collision, his weapon tripod actually retreated a little and was disadvantaged in terms of strength. After all, there was a difference of 3 minor realms. Even if Extreme Fire cultivated the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra, there was still a difference in dermic powers between them. He frowned slightly with worry. Strength was only one of the factors in a fight. He specialized in the art of fire taming. Although Purple Flame surpassed him in dermic powers, he was fearless and still confident that he could suppress Purple Flame. He was worried about Su Zimo on the other side. Right now, Yen Beichen had barged into the Sword Sect faction and was surrounded by more than 30 mighty figures. He was entangled by Purple Flame and victory won't be determined within a short period of time. As for Su Zimo, he was going to have to face the conjoint body mighty figures of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects alone. he would be destroyed instantly. Young master! Nian Qi exclaimed and charged forward without hesitation. However, she was only at the Dharma characteristic realm. Although she possessed the bloodline of the god race, she could only defend against 2 or 3 conjoint body mighty figures at most with her combat strength. Right now, there were already more than 50 conjoint body mighty figures from the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects who stood out right away. Desolate Marshal, you killed the titular disciple of Glass Palace and many paragons. I'll make you pay with blood today. The mighty figure of Glass Palace hollered and struck all of a sudden. Bang, bang, bang. Many conjoint body mighty figures attacked one after another and released earth-shaking dermic arts. Mighty figure dermic weapons tore through the air with terrifying might. The entire void trembled. The dermic arts of the 50 conjoint body mighty figures formed a surging dermic power ocean that seemed like it could devour everything. Even conjoint body mighty figures would be shredded into pieces without a corpse, let alone Dharma characteristic Tao lords like Su Zimo and Nian Qi. Roaring into the skies, Su Zimo conjured sword arts with both hands like a maniac and waved them wildly in all directions. TSK! 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 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth instantly. They were densely packed and surged with killing intent, as though they wanted to tear the world apart. Many stars appeared in the firmaments. The trajectories of those stars were extremely chaotic and collided. When the heavens' killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. Under normal circumstances, a single heaven-slaying sword chi should be enough to threaten ordinary conjoint body mighty figures given Su Zimo's current cultivation and combat strength. Although the conjoint body mighty figures that attacked now came from super sects such as the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects and were all top-tier conjoint body experts, they felt their scalps tingle when they saw that. What sort of a scene would it be if 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth instantly? Pest! The 50 conjoint body mighty figures gasped. Perhaps due to the illumination of the 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi or shock, the conjoint body mighty figures turned pale. Is that the power of a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord? The surrounding cultivators were already speechless. Even the experts of the Primordial 6 races hidden in the crowd narrowed their gazes and took Su Zimo seriously for the first time, gradually putting away their contempt. If they were in the same position, it would be difficult for them to receive the 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi single-handedly. The 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi collided with the dermic powers ocean formed by more than 50 conjoint body mighty figures. The ocean was riddled with holes by the 1,000 sword chi and its dermic powers drained rapidly. Clang, clang, clang. Many mighty figure dermic weapons collided with the heaven-slaying sword chi and sparks flew as they were repelled. There were way too many heaven-slaying sword chi. Dozens of heaven-slaying sword chi broke through the ocean of dermic powers and pierced towards the surrounding conjoint body mighty figures with endless sharpness. Poof, poof, poof. Some conjoint body mighty figures shrieked repeatedly after their bodies were pierced by the heaven-slaying sword chi. Some conjoint body mighty figures had half their bodies sliced off by a sword chi. Instantly, limbs flew everywhere in midair as blood spewed into a mist. These conjoint body mighty figures were considered lucky. After all, conjoint body mighty figures had exuberant vitality and powerful blood chi. They could survive even if half their bodies were severed by the heaven-slaying sword chi. However, a few conjoint body mighty figures could not dodge in time and their heads were pierced by a few heaven-slaying sword chi. Their essence spirits were destroyed and they died on the spot. The crowd was shocked. More than 50 conjoint body mighty figures joined forces and collided with a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord. However, some mighty figures ended up dying and many others were injured. The mighty figures were in chaos. What sort of sword Tao is that? How is it so terrifying? I heard that it's one of the 3 ancient sword arts, the heaven-slaying sword art. Desolate Marshal snatched it from Immortal's sword. No wonder. When he heard the discussions around him, Immortal Sword's expression turned even darker. However, he could no longer care about Su Zimo. That was because he had yet to break free from Yen Beichen's killing intent. Chapter 1300, Might of Hatred. Chapter 1300, Might of Hatred. Under the encirclement of more than 30 mighty figures of Sword Sect, Yen Beichen wielded the Hatred Fiend saber and suddenly roared into the skies. The howl was sorrowful and tragic. Everyone who heard it felt immense pain and hatred. It was a sound domain attack from the Hatred Sutra. Back when Su Zimo fought Tao Lord Hatred, he saw the latter release this sound domain secret skill. However, compared to Yen Beichen, Tao Lord Hatred's sound domain secret skill was way too inferior. Without experiencing immense changes, Tao Lord Hatred could not comprehend the pain, despair and hatred of the Hatred Sutra deeply. However, it was different for Yen Beichen. Su Zimo knew of sound domain secret skills such as Thunderclap Kill and Daming Mantra to begin with. When released, he could control the range of his attacks and would not injure others by mistake. However, Yen Beichen's sound domain secret skill was an attack of indifference. All the cultivators in Heaven and Earth Valley were enduring the impact of the howl. Everyone could not help but feel sadness, despair and hatred. The mighty figures of Sword Sect closest to it were stunned and had shocked expressions. Clang! Clang! The Hatred Fiend saber buzzed and trembled. It became extremely excited when it sensed the hatred in Yen Beichen's heart. My hatred! Yen Beichen's eyes turned pitch black like two bottomless abysses. With a tragic roar, he strode forward and slashed in reverse towards a mighty figure of Sword Sect. The Hatred Fiend saber transformed into a black streak of light and arrived instantly. Before the blade descended, the intent of boundless hatred transformed into streams of pitch-black fiend chi that coiled around the mighty figure of Sword Sect. No matter how sharp the mighty figure of Sword Sect was, he could not sever the fiend chi around him. The Hatred Fiend saber descended and sliced the mighty figure of Sword Sect into two. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died. The Hatred Fiend chi around Yen Beichen surged endlessly and his entire body seemed to have transformed into an endless abyss. It sucked the surrounding mighty figures of Sword Sect, wanting to devour them. I hate everything! Yen Beichen roared once more and arrived before another mighty figure of Sword Sect, slashing with his saber. Break! The mighty figure of Sword Sect was impressive as well. He emanated a sword chi that destroyed all life and severed the Hatred Fiend chi that bound him. He broke free and slashed in reverse towards the Hatred Fiend saber. The Hatred Fiend saber shone brightly. Snap! Right in front of everyone, the mighty figure's sword was severed by the Hatred Fiend saber. The Hatred Fiend saber continued slashing down and killed another mighty figure of Sword Sect. A mighty figure of Sword Sect was about to release a supreme sword Dao when his eyes met with Yen Beichen's fiendish eyes and he froze on the spot. His eyes were also gradually tainted by the fiend chi. Black fiend chi started spreading out from his body. A conjoint body mighty figure's soul was bewitched by Yen Beichen's visual technique and he could not control himself. The Hatred Fiend saber slashed once more. A gigantic head was sent flying. This mighty figure of Sword Sect had not woken up even till his death. After killing 3 mighty figures of Sword Sect with 3 slashes, the might of the Azura shocked the entire cultivation world once again, causing an uproar. The Hatred Sutra is indeed terrifying. Heavenly Secrets narrowed his eyes and murmured. He did not attack and stayed out of things right from the beginning. Everyone, don't panic. Summon the Earth-Slaying Sword Formation and kill the Azura with the might of the Sword Formation. Immortal Sword reminded hurriedly. In the ancient era, the Sword Emperor obtained one of the 3 great sword arts, the Earth-Slaying Sword Art. However, the Earth-Slaying Sword Art was not easy to cultivate and its killing intent was too strong. It was extremely powerful and a backlash would occur if one was careless. The best-case scenario would be chi deviation. In worst-case scenarios, they might even die on the spot with their blood splattered. Later on, the Sword Emperor deduced the lifeless sword art from the Earth-Slaying Sword Art. Although it was extremely powerful, it was relatively easier to cultivate and had been passed down till this day. As for the Earth-Slaying Sword Art, it could be released in the form of a sword formation. With many mighty figures sharing the killing intent of the Earth-Slaying Sword Art, there would be no backlash from the killing intent. Shoo! 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 The remaining mighty figures of Sword Sect calmed down and set up a sword formation, channeling streams of cold murderous sword chi. Instantly the ground quaked. One after another, gigantic cracks appeared, as though a dragon snake was alerted. When the Earth's killing intent is released, the dragon snake shall rise. Yen Beichen looked at the incoming sword chi with an indifferent expression. His white hair danced and his black eyes were dead. If someone could cultivate the earth-slaying sword art single-handedly, they might be able to threaten him. Now, although many mighty figures of sword sect had formed the earth-slaying sword formation, they had completely lost the sharpness that the earth-slaying sword art should have. Huff, huff, huff. The fiend chi on Yen Beichen surged and formed a pitch-black fiend sea that devoured all the incoming sword chi. Not only that, the fiend sea even absorbed all the dermic powers in the surroundings and grew continuously, forming even more hatred fiend chi. Earth-slaying sword formation? Break! Yen Beichen hollered and gripped the hatred fiend saber with both hands. Leaping up, he looked down and slashed down at the sword formation beneath viciously. Boom! There was a deafening sound. Countless swords fell. Many figures retreated with pale faces. Some of the mighty figures of sword sect could not even contain themselves and spat out a mouthful of blood with miserable expressions. Immortal sword, even if the sword emperor is resurrected today, he won't be able to save you. Yen Beichen walked towards Immortal sword step by step and said word by word. His voice was hoarse and deep, containing torrential hatred. Finally, a hint of panic flashed through Immortal sword's eyes. Heavenly secrets, we're on the same side. What are you waiting for? Immortal sword shouted. Heavenly secret smiled indifferently and his figure flashed. Wielding his folding fan, he floated towards Yen Beichen. Since that's the case, let me test out the Azura's hatred fiend cultivation technique. On the other side, Su Zimo released 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi and killed a few conjoint body mighty figures on the spot, causing the remaining mighty figures to be flustered. Seizing the opportunity of the chaos, he waved his sleeves and sent Nian Qi, who had just charged forward, back to Ethereal Peak. Don't come. You can't interfere in this battle. Su Zimo's tone was resolute and unquestionable. But, young master. Nian Qi was reluctant. The old immortal crane shook her head gently. Nian Qi, listen to Zimo first. If you head up, he might be distracted because he has to take care of you. Although Nian Qi was unwilling, she could only stand on the spot and watch the battlefield with clenched fists. Not only did the 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi fail to intimidate the conjoint body mighty figures, it enraged the super sects of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects even more. They were conjoint body mighty figures. How could they be pushed back by a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord? Desolate Marshal, let's see how many times you can release a dermic art as such. A mighty figure of Chaos Essence sect waved his hand and ordered, Mighty figures of Chaos Essence sect, listen up. All of you, attack and kill Desolate Marshal with all your might. Everyone, attack. Desolate Marshal is merely a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord. I don't believe he can go against all of us. A mighty figure of Heavenly Dipper sect waved his hand as well. Initially, only more than 50 conjoint body mighty figures attacked Su Zimo. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 conjoint body mighty figures had gathered after the first clash. Furthermore, that number was still increasing. Chapter 1301, Supreme Dharma Characteristic. Chapter 1301, Supreme Dharma Characteristic. Since you guys want to know my combat strength, I'll let you have your fill. Against the incoming conjoint body mighty figures, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and a boom sounded from his body as 3 phantoms soared into the skies. Desolate Marshal has indeed condensed 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. The rumors were not fake. As expected of the #1 monster incarnate in history. Even when they were at the Dharma characteristic realm, the ancient emperors can't compare to him. Even if his combat strength is heaven-defying, it's useless. Desolate Marshal will definitely die if he wants to save the taboo living being. His cultivation path will come to an end here. The crowd discussed fervently. However, those discussions faded before long. Finally, the dense crowd fell into a dead silence. The eyes of the cultivators were filled with endless shock as the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics rose continuously. 80 feet. 87 feet. 89 feet. It did not stop. 90 feet. Supreme Dharma characteristic. Furthermore, there were 3 of them. Normally speaking, Conjoint body mighty figures had already fused their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics into their bodies, and their auras were powerful. Even if a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was dozens of feet tall and was indomitable, it could not compare to a conjoint body mighty figure in terms of aura. However, it was different for a supreme Dharma characteristic. A supreme Dharma characteristic stood in the void and was one with heaven and earth to begin with. It was like a divine being that had descended and emitted a terrifying aura that threatened everything. A single supreme Dharma characteristic was enough to cause a stir in the cultivation world. The mental and visual impact of 3 supreme Dharma characteristics was unimaginable for the cultivators. It was not only the Dharma characteristic Tao Lords present. Even the conjoint body mighty figures that charged forward were shocked and their expressions changed. How strong was it for someone to condense 3 supreme Dharma characteristics single-handedly? If that person were to fuse the 3 supreme Dharma characteristics into his body and advance to the conjoint body realm, how strong would he be? Many conjoint body mighty figures could not imagine it. Or rather, they did not dare to think about it. Initially, the experts of the primordial 6 races were merely watching the entertaining show merrily. The moment they saw the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics descend, the expressions of the experts of the primordial 6 races changed as well. The Golden Crow Third Prince narrowed his eyes and murmured with a shimmering gaze, "Interesting. There are 3 supreme Dharma characteristics. This monster incarnate of the human race is very scary. If he grows up, he might not be inferior to the human emperor." The mighty figure of the heavenly eye race said slowly. Rakshasa Fong Tian licked his lips, seemingly unconcerned. There are many humans and they are as vast as ants. It's only normal for 1 or 2 monster incarnates to be born. Even though he said that, the experts of the primordial 6 races no longer had smiles on their faces. Their relaxed expressions from earlier on had vanished as well. Although they were unwilling to admit it, they knew in their hearts that they might not be a match for Tao Lord Desolate Marshal if he was at the same cultivation realm as them. This was definitely not a good sign for the primordial 6 races. They were born strong and had noble bloodlines. At the same cultivation realm, they could sweep through the 10,000 races and suppress everything. Apart from the ancient era where they lost to the eternal human emperor, fiend emperor hatred and other emperors, they had never felt threatened most of the time against enemies of the same cultivation realm. However, they felt threatened by Desolate Marshal. Of course, the experts of the primordial 6 races could still hold their ground. After all, they had dozens of conjoint body mighty figures here, and they were an entire major cultivation realm higher than Tao Lord Desolate Marshal. Once the human race was almost done with fighting, any single mighty figure would be able to settle everything. On the battlefield, dark clouds gathered above the head of the thunderdermic body as it stood on a sea of lightning. Its body was coiled with blinding electric currents and it was domineering. Wielding a whip made from millions of lightning, it looked like a lord that looked down on the world with a torrential aura. The Rulai dermic body assumed a lotus position on a golden lotus platform with a dignified expression. It shone with a divine Buddhist light and lowered its head as a series of deafening Sanskrit sounds emanated from it. The heavenly fiend Dharma body was shrouded in fiend chi and its eyes were pitch black. It was shuddering and wielded the heavenly fiend scythe that was surrounded by an aura of death. It was like a god of death that had walked out of hell and could reap the lives of any living being. "Kill!" Su Zimo shouted. The 3 supreme Dharma characteristics protected him in the middle and moved at the same time, charging towards Night Spirit who was locked in the distance. Piak! The thunder whip danced and tore through the air, whipping a conjoint body mighty figure during his moment of paralysis. The body of the conjoint body mighty figure was split into pieces and a blood mist spewed. Shoo! An essence spirit escaped from the battlefield in a panic and only managed to barely survive because it did not turn back. The power of a supreme Dharma characteristic was enough to kill conjoint body mighty figures. The conjoint body mighty figure was enraged and had an anguished expression, but there was nothing he could do. Conjoint body mighty figures had immense vitality and could regrow severed limbs. However, his physical body was shattered and could not be recovered. Rebirth through blood was a power that only Mahayana realm cultivators possessed, and it was a form of divine powers. Blood gushed out from the battlefield. A large head was severed by the heavenly fiend scythe and the essence spirit within was corroded by the fiend chi before it could escape, dying on the spot. When the conjoint body mighty figure who escaped initially saw that, he felt a sense of relief. At the very least, he was still alive compared to that mighty figure. Boom! The Rulai dermic body conjured dermic seals with its palm, and a huge shadow engulfed a conjoint body mighty figure, suppressing him beneath. The Great Mount Meru Seal. Before the conjoint body mighty figure could say anything, he was crushed into sludge by the Great Mount Meru Seal released by the Rulai dermic body. 2 conjoint body mighty figures were killed in succession after the 3 supreme Dharma characteristics descended and unleashed their divine might. Everyone, don't panic. A supreme Dharma characteristic is only a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic at the end of the day. No matter how strong it is, there's a limit. The mighty figure of Heavenly Dipper Sect said in a deep voice. Even without his reminder, the other mighty figures calmed down. Those who could cultivate to the conjoint body realm had experienced way too many battles in their lives. What had they not witnessed before? Even if the appearance of Su Zimo's 3 supreme Dharma characteristics managed to stun them momentarily and allowed him to kill 2 mighty figures, the remaining conjoint body mighty figures recovered in the blink of an eye. If they were ordinary conjoint body mighty figures, they would indeed not be able to defend against the killing power of a supreme Dharma characteristic. However, the conjoint body mighty figures present were all from supersects of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sections. All of them were paragons and monster incarnates that ruled over a region. Bang! 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 Many conjoint body mighty figures attacked, and many mighty figure dermic weapons tore through the air and descended. Countless dermic arts poured down and charged towards the 3 supreme Dharma characteristics. The 3 supreme Dharma characteristics did not manage to protect Su Zimo for long before they stopped. They were restrained on the spot by the endless attacks of the conjoint body mighty figures and could not advance. However, with the protection of 3 supreme Dharma characteristics, it was extremely difficult for many mighty figures to injure Su Zimo as well. The 3 supreme Dharma characteristics waved a thunder whip, condensed dermic seals of the Buddhist monasteries and swung the heavenly fiend's scythe. They were like a divine being with 3 heads and 6 arms with incredible combat strength as they defended against the attacks of many mighty figures from the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects and looked down at the world in an unparalleled manner. Chapter 1302. Fusion of Dharma Characteristics. Chapter 1302. Fusion of Dharma Characteristics. Groar! Suddenly, more than 10 tall black figures charged into the battlefield. They were filled with a foul stench and had menacing expressions with long fur. Although the figures were in human form, they could no longer be called humans. To be precise, these were more than 10 battle corpses. One of the 5 heretical doctrines, Corpse Refinement Cult, had attacked. 3 conjoint body mighty figures of Corpse Refinement Cult stood outside the battlefield and controlled more than 10 terrifying battle corpses to charge towards Su Zimo's 3 supreme Dharma characteristics. Those battle corpses were not ordinary corpses. They were refined from the bodies of fallen mighty figures, and their flesh and bones were incomparably strong. Coupled with Corpse Refinement Cult's secret skill, the battle corpses were already invulnerable to weapons, water and fire. Although they could not release dermic arts, every single battle corpse carried immense poison and was filled with filthy chi. A single hair on a corpse could easily poison a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord to death. The most frightening thing was that the battle corpses would not feel pain or fear. Against Su Zimo's supreme Dharma characteristics, the other conjoint body mighty figures were still wary and clashed with dermic arts and weapons. As for the dozens of battle corpses, they charged forward fearlessly. Although they were repelled by the supreme Dharma characteristics such that their sternums were shattered, they felt nothing and charged forward time and again to fight against the supreme Dharma characteristics. Those battle corpses would not die unless they were burned into ashes. They were practically immortal. The bodies of the supreme Dharma characteristics were inevitably tainted by a lot of filthy pus and their glow dimmed significantly. Under the impact of many conjoint body mighty figures, the power of the supreme Dharma characteristics were draining rapidly. Ha 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 ha! When a mighty figure of Chaos Essence Sect saw that the outcome was determined, he could not help but laugh. Desolate Marshal, let's see how long more your 3 supreme Dharma characteristics can last. Fellow Taoists, this lad no longer has any means left. Today is the day to kill Desolate Marshal. A mighty figure of Heavenly Dipper Sect shouted as well. Many mighty figures responded in unison, and their spirits were invigorated as their attacks turned even fiercer. Sigh, Desolate martial lost in the end. 3 supreme Dharma characteristics. Even such an unparalleled monster incarnate in history failed to escape the fate of being suppressed. The cultivators lamented emotionally. The outcome of the battle between Extreme Fire and Purple Flame had not been decided. Although Extreme Fire had already taken control of the situation with his unparalleled fire-taming techniques, Purple Flame's dermic powers were immense and it would be difficult for Extreme Fire to suppress him completely within a short period of time. He turned increasingly anxious when he saw the predicament and danger Xueqi was in. Soaring Serpent Flame Deity. Extreme Fire hollered and condensed his spirit consciousness. A soaring serpent burning with flames burrowed out of his glabella and charged towards Purple Flame. The fact that he activated an Essence Spirit secret skill was proof of how anxious he was. Purple Flame's expression changed. The Soaring Serpent Flame Deity was an Essence Spirit secret skill from the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra, and ordinary Essence Spirit secret skills could not defend against it. Slash! Suddenly, a blood beam shone from Purple Flame's glabella. A blood-colored saber tore through the air with an extremely evil aura, slashing towards the incoming Soaring Serpent. The 2 Essence Spirit secret skills collided silently. However, an extremely terrifying spirit consciousness fluctuation was emanated. A look of shock flashed through Extreme Fire's face as he exclaimed, as though he recalled something. That's the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. To think that you would actually learn it. The Blood Saber was an Essence Spirit secret skill from the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra and was recognized by Extreme Fire. Instantly, Extreme Fire understood why Purple Flame's injuries had not only recovered, the latter's cultivation had increased greatly in the past dozens of years as well. The origin of everything was the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. This fiend technique was way too terrifying. Back when Tao Lord Blood Fiend appeared out of nowhere, although he was only at the Dharma characteristic realm, the impact and fear he had on the entire cultivation world was something that conjoint body mighty figures and Mahayana patriarchs could not compare to. Hee. Purple Flame did not refute and grinned. You're the only one allowed to have opportunities while I'm not allowed to have encounters myself. Absorb. Purple Flame circulated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, and his eyes shone with a scarlet glint as he prepared to absorb the endless bloodlines that were spilling from the battlefield. Extreme Fire's heart sank. He was once by Xueqi's side and knew very well about the power of the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. If Purple Flame was allowed to absorb the bloodline of the battlefield, his power would recover within a short period of time and there was a high chance he could even break through. Right now, most of the blood spilled on the battlefield came from mighty figures. A single drop of blood from a mighty figure contained an unimaginable amount of energy. Right then, Heavenly Secrets, who was initially fighting against the Azura, noticed this and retracted his smile. He glared at Purple Flame with a killing intent in his eyes. All of a sudden, Purple Flame's expression changed. He had just circulated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, and had only absorbed a few strands of bloodline when it felt as though he was being severed forcefully by some sort of power. He could no longer sense the bloodlines on the battlefield, as though there was an energy barrier of sorts. Although Extreme Fire did not know what happened to Purple Flame, he realized that this was an opportunity and struck without hesitation. Samadhi Dao Fire. Extreme Fire released the strongest dermic art of the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra right away. Using essence, chi and spirit as samadhi, Extreme Fire condensed a Scarlet Dao Fire that descended on Purple Flame's head instantly. Ah! Purple Flame roared and channeled the dermic powers in his body hurriedly, forming a sinister and cold hellfire to fight against it. However, there was no way the power of an ordinary hellfire could compare against the Samadhi Dao Fire. The moment the 2 flames clashed, victory was already decided. Purple Flame's clothes began to burn. Before long, flames appeared on his hair as well. When he saw that, the killing intent in Heavenly Secrets' eyes faded gradually. Heavenly Secrets frowned slightly with a hint of confusion. On the other side, a mighty figure of Poison Sect who was not directly involved saw the situation clearer and declared, "Everyone, victory is about to be decided on Extreme Fire's side. If you guys can't kill the lad right now, it'll be even more difficult once Extreme Fire comes. How about I poison this beast to death first?" The mighty figure of Poison Sect said sinisterly. "How dare you?" Xueqi hollered when he heard that. The current situation was turning increasingly dangerous. The experts of the primordial 6 races had yet to appear, and the longer things dragged on, the worse it would be for him. He had to save Night's spirit as soon as possible. However, he could not break through the defenses of many mighty figures with just 3 supreme Dharma characteristics, let alone approach Night's spirit and rescue the latter. Why wouldn't I dare? You're just a mere Tao Lord and you can't even protect yourself. How dare you threaten me? The mighty figure of Poison's sect walked towards Night's spirit and sneered. How dare you heretical doctrines come and provoke me as well? I'll bury all of you here today. None of you shall dream of returning alive. The killing intent in Su Zimo's eyes intensified as he said slowly, Dharma characteristics, fuse. Swoosh. The 3 supreme dermic bodies suddenly blazed with flames. The thunder dermic body burned with scarlet flames. The Rulai dermic body burned with golden flames. The heavenly fiend Dharma body burned with black flames. The filth on the 3 supreme dermic bodies burned rapidly and dissipated, turning their dermic powers incomparably pure once more. All 3 of them moved at the same time and fused together rapidly with the power of fire. They disappeared and formed a gigantic fireball that burned furiously with flames surging into the air. Chapter 1303. Transcendence of the Extreme Realm. Chapter 1303. Transcendence of the Extreme Realm. Dharma characteristic fusion? What's going on? Where are Desolate Marshal's 3 supreme Dharma characteristics? Where did they go? Many conjoint body mighty figures widened their eyes in shock. Su Zimo's 3 supreme Dharma characteristics had already vanished completely, leaving only a gigantic fireball floating on the spot. Immediately after, right in front of countless gazes, the gigantic fireball stretched slowly and a figure rose rapidly from within with an unstoppable aura. Even the firmaments could not suppress his torrential aura. Even the ground could not withstand his massive body. It was as though the figure was an immortal king that was awakened from the flames, or a god that was born from the flames. In the world, it reigned supreme and its might was immense, emitting a terrifying aura. Even the surrounding conjoint body mighty figures felt their hearts skip a beat from that aura. What is that? The expressions of the experts of the primordial 6 races who were initially watching changed starkly. The Golden Crow Third Prince was shocked as he bolted upright and exclaimed. The other experts had equally grim expressions as they glared at the figure fixedly with wary looks on their faces. Some of the experts even revealed a hint of fear in the depths of their eyes. The figure rose and grew continuously, and in the blink of an eye, it was 90 feet tall. I've got it! A mighty figure of the heavenly eye race narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, Tao Lord Desolate Marshal fused his 3 supreme Dharma characteristics because he wants to condense a brand new heaven and earth Dharma characteristic and break the shackles of the extreme realm. Break through the extreme realm. The other experts of the primordial 6 races shuddered. That's impossible. God Han Ling shook his head. 9 is an extreme number and heaven and earth Dharma characteristics become supreme at 90 feet. Throughout history, there has never been anyone who could surpass the extreme realm and condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that's beyond 90 feet tall. 9 was an extreme number. That was like an unshakable Tao of the universe. It was like a heavenly chasm that could not be crossed. At Foundation Establishment Realm, one could reach the extreme Foundation Establishment Realm by unlocking 9 meridians. That was the limit. Trying to break through that great Tao shackle was akin to defying the heavens. Not necessarily. A mighty figure of the Bloodvine race said slowly, the fusion of 3 supreme Dharma characteristics is way too powerful. There's a chance it might truly surpass the extreme realm. Boom! The moment the mighty figure of the Bloodvine race said that, the 90 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic rose once more and grew to a height of 91 feet. Crack, crack, crack. A series of cracks sounded from the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. As though it had broken free from some great Tao shackle, its aura turned even more berserk. This. The crowd was shocked. They had witnessed an unprecedented scene. In this generation, a cultivator had broken through the great Tao shackle to condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that surpassed 90 feet. Boom! Another bang sounded from the body of the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. In the blink of an eye, it grew by another foot. 92 feet. Boom. 93 feet. Boom. 94 feet. With every foot taller, the aura released by the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic would increase. Under countless shocked gazes, the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic grew to a height of 99 feet before stopping. 99. The extreme of the extreme realm. The heaven and earth dharmic body burned with raging flames and stood upright within. With 3 heads and 6 arms, it wielded a thunder whip, the heavenly fiend scythe and the creation lotus platform like a fiend celestial that was fighting against the heavens. The entire heaven and earth valley seemed to have gone silent. It was as though all the cultivators, including the experts of the primordial 6 races, were stunned by the aura of the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic and went silent. Su Zimo looked at the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic with a calm expression. Apart from the advancement in his cultivation in the past 100 years, his greatest gain was discovering the possibility of fusing 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. He had once thought that a 90 feet supreme might not be the limit of a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. The fact that it had never happened before did not mean that it was impossible. However, one had to possess immense strength if they wanted to surpass the extreme realm or supreme. Even with his talent and cultivation, he had only formed 3 supreme Dharma characteristics after obtaining so many opportunities and encounters. It was the same for Monk Daming of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Monk Daming's combat strength was heaven-defying and he was the strongest opponent Su Zimo had encountered up till this point of his cultivation. Furthermore, he was even stronger than Su Zimo with 4 supreme Dharma characteristics. However, be it him or Monk Daming, neither of them could condense a supreme heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that surpassed 90 feet. Therefore, Su Zimo guessed that normal cultivation would not be able to break through the shackles of the extreme realm. If he wanted to break free from those shackles, he would have to take another path. That possibility was the fusion of his Dharma characteristics. However, Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics came from different Tao sects of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend Das. It was extremely difficult to fuse them. He had to find a compatibility spot or rather, a commonality between the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. That commonality was fire. Su Zimo had cultivated the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra and cultivated the 3 Tao fires of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sections. Using the 3 Tao fires as a medium, he incinerated the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics and gave birth to a new Dharma characteristic through flames. That was the current 99 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. How dare a bunch of rotting corpses provoke me? Su Zimo looked at the dozens of battle corpses not far away and hollered, "Burn them!" The 3 heads opened their mouths at the same time and spat out 3 balls of scorching flames at the dozens of battle corpses. Not only was the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic fused with 3 supreme Dharma characteristics, it was also fused with 3 Tao fires. The flame that was casually spat out was the Samadhi Tao fire. Su Zimo's glabella shone and another essence spirit fire burst forth, entering the Samadhi Tao fire. The Kacharati Tao fire descended upon the world and engulfed the dozens of battle corpses instantly. Prior to this, even if the battle corpses were battered by Su Zimo's supreme Dharma characteristics and riddled with holes, they had combat strength and charged forward continuously without fatigue or pain. Those battle corpses had no intelligence and even Buddhism could not purify them. However, when they were engulfed by the Kacharati Tao fire, the battle corpses struggled and howled on the spot as though they were in immense pain. The battle corpses were invulnerable against weapons, water and fire. Even extreme fire Samadhi Tao fire could not incinerate those battle corpses. However, it was different for Su Zimo's Kacharati Tao fire. Pus blood flowed continuously from the battle corpses. However, the moment it flowed out, it was burned to ashes by the Kacharati Tao fire. No matter how the battle corpses struggled, the Tao flames on their bodies would not extinguish. In less than 10 breaths, the dozens of battle corpses turned into ashes and dissipated into the world. The 3 mighty figures of corpse refinement cult that were controlling the battle corpses turned pale. All their efforts up till this point of their cultivation were spent on the dozens of battle corpses. Now that Su Zimo burned them to ashes, it was equivalent to destroying their 10,000 years of cultivation. The blow was way too great. For a mighty figure of corpse refinement cult, losing a battle corpse meant that his combat strength was significantly reduced, rendering him no different from ordinary conjoint body mighty figures. Su Zimo's Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic swung the thunder whip in his hands forward viciously. The whip seemed to have crossed the voids and whipped the three mighty figures of corpse refinement cult. Piak! Not only did the whip contain a terrifying power of thunder, there was also the Kacharati Dao fire. Instantly, three corpse refinement cult mighty figures were ripped apart and their essence spirits were burned to ashes in midair. Chapter 1304. Undefeated. Chapter 1304. Undefeated. More than 10 battle corpses were burned to ashes, and some conjoint body mighty figures who could not dodge in time and were engulfed by the Kacharati Dao fire were even more unlucky. In a few breaths, they were burned into nothingness by the Kacharati Dao fire and their bodies and essence spirits were destroyed. Many mighty figures retreated instinctively in shock. With a single thought from Su Zimo, the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic strode towards Night Spirit with him right behind. A mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace that stood in his way had just summoned his Dharmic weapon when the Heavenly Fiend's scythe slashed down. Clang! Sparks flew as the Heavenly Fiend's scythe collided with the Dharmic weapon. The mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace shuddered and the sound of bones and tendons cracking could be heard from his body. Before long, his arms collapsed limply. A 99 feet tall Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was more than a single level above a supreme Dharma characteristic in terms of strength. Initially, many conjoint body mighty figures could restrict Su Zimo on the spot and suppress the three supreme Dharma characteristics steadily. However, this fused Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic that surpassed the extreme realm had a power that was completely above the conjoint body realm. The Heavenly Fiend's scythe slashed down with the momentum and the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace was cleaved into two. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died. Relying on his strong physique and shocking bloodline, a mighty figure of Diamond Monastery wielded an indestructible diamond staff and wanted to stop Su Zimo in his tracks. Su Zimo's Dharma characteristic wielded the Creation Lotus platform and smashed down on the head of the mighty figure of Diamond Monastery. Boom! The Creation Lotus platform collided with the diamond staff with a loud bang. The mighty figure of Diamond Monastery cried out in pain and his palm was torn. Blood gushed out and his diamond staff flew from his hands. OM! He wanted to retreat, but Su Zimo's Dharma characteristic was faster and chanted Sanskrit. The Creation Lotus platform crushed him into dust and blood splattered on the spot. At the same time, the other arm of the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic waved and whipped another conjoint body mighty figure with a thunder whip that was blazing with raging flames. Piak! The conjoint body mighty figure was whipped to death and his essence spirit was destroyed. The 99 feet tall Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic released an unimaginable terrifying combat strength that even mighty figures from Super Sex could not defend against. This was practically a supreme fiend celestial that could sweep through everything. Everywhere he passed, many mighty figures were overwhelmed. Blood dyed half the skies red. It was extremely tragic as mighty figures everywhere spilled blood. Figures fell from midair one after another. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 conjoint body mighty figures died in the hands of Su Zimo's Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic. Even Heaven and Earth Valley was painted scarlet from the blood. When he noticed that, the smile on Heavenly Secrets' face seemed to deepen. What are you laughing at? When he saw the smile on Heavenly Secrets' face, the hatred in Yen Beichen's heart turned even more berserk and rich. It was as though he had returned to the bamboo forest of the Middle Continent, to the moment of Pian Ran's death. If not for the person before him, their location would not have been exposed. If not for the person before him, Pian Ran would not have died. Since you jumped out yourself, I'll kill you first. The fiend chi on Yen Beichen intensified and the hatred fiend's saber buzzed and trembled. His aura climbed once more and released endless pitch-black saber shadows towards Heavenly Secrets. In that endless hatred, there was even a chilling killing intent. Heavenly Secrets was alarmed. It was no wonder why the Hatred Sutra was the #1 fiend technique of the ancient era. The stronger the hatred in one's heart, the more terrifying the hatred fiend chi and the stronger their combat strength. Furthermore, Yen Beichen's burst contained not only the power of the Hatred Fiend Sutra, but also the power of the Azura. The fusion of the two fiend cultivation techniques formed a powerful saber intent of hatred and killing, engulfing Heavenly Secrets within. Initially, Heavenly Secrets could still deal with Yen Beichen. However, after Yen Beichen released this attack, Heavenly Secrets felt his scalp tingle as though a calamity was approaching. Not good. The smile on Heavenly Secrets' face was gone and his expression darkened. This saber intent is too strong, I can't defeat it. He could already sense that the power of that saber intent had surpassed the limits of the conjoint body realm. Annihilation mist. Heavenly Secrets hollered and rich dermic powers surged out of his body, forming gray mists around him. His figure disappeared into the mist before long, vanishing into the void. Poof, poof, poof. One after another, the Hatred Fiend Chi and Azura Fiend Chi stabbed into the fog and it floated out rapidly, as though it was struck by an immense impact. How terrifying was the saber intent created by the Hatred and Azura Fiend techniques. It had already sealed all of Heavenly Secrets' escape paths. Heavenly Secrets had not expected that a single smile of his would incur Yen Beichen's immense hatred and rage. What a lunatic! He lost his composure momentarily within the fog and cursed internally as a blood glint flashed through his eyes. The saber intent was way too ferocious that he could not break free even with the escape techniques of Enigma Palace. All of a sudden, a blood beam flashed through the fog. In a flash, the blood beam darted out from the gap between the combined Hatred and Azura Fiend Chi saber intent by a hair's breadth. The fog dissipated and Heavenly Secrets' figure vanished. The blood beam paused in the distance and revealed its true appearance. It was Heavenly Secrets who had escaped. At that moment, Heavenly Secrets' expression was terrible, and a few bloodied wounds appeared on his body as he looked at Yen Beichen with lingering fear. Yen Beichen's expression was cold and he did not take the initiative to chase. He knew very well that given Heavenly Secrets' methods, if the latter chose to make use of this escape technique, it would be difficult for him to catch up in a short period of time. He could not let Immortal Sword escape just to hunt down Heavenly Secrets. Immortal Sword had to die today. Yen Beichen turned around once more and charged towards Sword Sect. If Su Zimo had seen what happened earlier on, he would have been shocked to discover that the escape technique Heavenly Secrets used was one he was extremely familiar with, blood escape. Purple Flame, you betrayed the sect and harmed your fellow sect mates. Today is the day you will be executed. On the other side, Extreme Fire hollered and channeled his essence spirit to its limits. The Samadhi Dao fire intensified. An endless stream of power of flames burned into Purple Flame's body and bloodline. Ah! Purple Flame reared his head and howled with a pained expression. Flame spewed from his opened mouth and his flesh was split open as he was burned beyond recognition. The reason for this was also because he had cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra before. Otherwise, he would have been burned into ashes a long time ago. However, he did not manage to absorb the power of bloodline from this place. As such, his dermic powers were exhausted and he could not hold on any longer. The Samadhi Dao fire burned from inside out and engulfed him completely. In midair, Purple Flame's figure vanished, leaving a gigantic human-shaped fireball. Gradually, the fireball lost all signs of life and turned into sparks that scattered down. Extreme Fire had a conflicted expression when he saw that. He did not feel as happy as he thought he would. Purple Flame was his senior brother after all. In fact, he could even recall the scenes of senior brother Purple Flame leading him on the path of cultivation when he first joined 100 Refinement Sect. Who would have thought that as time passed by, the two of them would grow further apart and reach a point where they were irreconcilable. In the end, Purple Flame died in his hands. The path of cultivation was long and the affairs of the world were unpredictable. How many people could stick to their roots? Chapter 1305. Appearance of the Primordial Races. Chapter 1305. Appearance of the Primordial Races. Surrounded by the terrifying fiend Chi of hatred and the Azura, Yen Beichen charged towards Immortal Sword once more. Poof, poof, poof. The two terrifying fiend techniques of the Hatred Sutra and Azura Sutra were already channeled to their limits. Yen Beichen seemed like he was treading through a sea of blood with a torrential malevolent aura. The many mighty figures of Sword Sect could not defend against Yen Beichen's attacks at all. Wielding the Hatred Fiend Saber, the Azura resembled the ancient Fiend Emperor reborn and many mighty figures of Sword Sect fell one after another. The startling Sword Intent and lifeless Sword Intent could not defend against the sharpness of the Hatred Fiend Saber at all. In the blink of an eye, There were only slightly more than 10 mighty figures left out of more than 30 in the Sword Sect group. Furthermore, every single mighty figure of Sword Sect had panicked expressions and retreated continuously. Although conjoint body mighty figures had immense vitality and could even regrow severed limbs, how could anyone merely be severely injured against the hatred fiend saber? All of them would die. For some of the mighty figures, they had already cultivated more than 10,000 years by this point. None of them wanted to die here just like that. Some of the mighty figures of Sword Sect turned and fled, no longer daring to fight Yen Beichen. Immortal's sword stood in the crowd, feeling increasingly alarmed as he looked at the foreign faces beside him pleadingly. Those foreign faces were mighty figures of the Primordial 6 races. However, they had changed their appearances and hid their true bodies. At that moment, the experts of the Primordial 6 races had grim expressions as they rose in unison. I can't watch on anymore. I have to make a move and kill him. God Honling said slowly. That's right. If he's allowed to continue growing, he'll become an unimaginable threat to our primordial races. The mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race nodded as well. Fellow Taoists, thank you for your help. I'll definitely remember your life-saving grace. Immortal Sword was delighted, thinking that the experts of the Primordial 6 races were going to deal with Yen Beichen. When he heard that, the Golden Crow Third Prince gave a stifled laughter with a disdainful expression. To be honest, none of them from the Primordial 6 races took human cultivators seriously at all, not even if they were mighty figures. Although Immortal Sword was famous in the cultivation world, in the eyes of the Golden Crow Third Prince and the others, he was akin to an ant. Who would bother about his life or death? What's your name again? The Golden Crow Third Prince reached out and patted Immortal Sword on the cheek. You're not qualified to address us as equals. Your life or death has nothing to do with us, Fufu. Immortal Sword was once the titular disciple of Sword Sect. Even if his essence spirit was injured, he was a mighty figure. But now, he was slapped on the cheeks by the Golden Crow Third Prince. The smile on Immortal Sword's face froze. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had never endured such humiliation. If it was anyone else, he would have counterattacked immediately if they dared to do this to him. He would use all means to torture them to death and burn their bones into ashes. However, the person before him was the Golden Crow Third Prince. Beside the Golden Crow Third Crown Prince were conjoint body mighty figures of the other primordial races as well. If he showed any bit of defiance, he would be killed by the experts of the Primordial 6 races before Yen Beichen could arrive. The Golden Crow Third Prince ignored him and left with the other experts of the primordial races before long, heading towards Su Zimo. Immortal Sword did not move at all and gripped his fists tightly. His body trembled slightly and his face flushed red. Even after the Primordial 6 races left, he said nothing. He allowed his dignity to be trampled into dust by the other party. Immortal Sword grit his teeth and looked at Yen Beichen, who was charging over from afar in silence. He knew that he could not compare to Yen Beichen after all. If Yen Beichen was in his position, Yen Beichen would definitely dare to raise his saber against the Primordial 6 races. However, he did not even dare to express a single bit of displeasure. On another battlefield, Su Zimo's Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics was invincible and undefeatable. No conjoint body mighty figure could stop him. The mighty figure of Poison Sect who declared that he wanted to kill Night Spirit with poison earlier on was scared out of his wits and retreated hurriedly. Where can you run to? Su Zimo shouted. His Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic waved its whip and tore through the voids, whipping the mighty figure of Poison Sect into pieces, and the latter died on the spot. After the series of kills, Su Zimo was now extremely close to Night Spirit. His gaze intensified and the thunder whip coiled, wanting to pull Night Spirit over from the ground. All of a sudden, a blood-colored vine appeared and whipped the thunder whip with an extremely evil aura. The power of thunder and the Samadhi Dao fire exploded instantly. The blood-colored vine constricted and its surface was charred black. However, its foundation was not injured. However, the power of the thunder whip was completely dissipated. Without even thinking, Su Zimo's 99 feet tall Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic strode forward and swung its arms, smashing down with the Creation Lotus platform. At the same time, the Heavenly Fiend's scythe descended as well. Good timing. A figure flashed and transformed into his true form. His golden hair danced and his green eyes were deep, filled with golden blood chi. Splash! The sound of a tsunami echoed from that figure's body. Tsunami blood. The figure did not use any dharmic weapons and merely punched towards the creation lotus platform bare-handed. The crowd was shocked when they saw that. Even mighty figures' dharmic weapons might not be able to defend against the power of Su Zimo's Dharma characteristic, let alone a body of flesh. Boom! A loud bang sounded when the creation lotus platform collided with the person's fist. Although the figure took a half step back, his fist was intact and the creation lotus platform was repelled as well. The golden-haired man waved his hand and grinned. It does hurt a little. He merely felt a slight pain receiving the creation lotus platform bare-handed. On the other side, the heavenly fiend's scythe was blocked by a cold beam the moment it slashed down and sparks flew. A tall figure stood in midair with a green face and bared fangs that were extremely hideous. A pair of pitch-black meat wings grew from his back and he wielded two crescent sabers with shocking curves that shone with a cold glint. The primordial races had finally appeared. Su Zimo was extremely familiar with the two races that attacked later on. The golden-haired, green-eyed being was of the god race. The one with the green race, bared fangs and wings was from the Rakshasa race. The thing that blocked his thunderwhip was an extremely evil plant that waved countless blood-colored vines. Every single vine was like a thick blood vessel. At the top of the vines was a human face without a nose or eyes. There was only a gigantic mouth with sharp fangs that intertwined with one another and shone coldly, as though they could slice everything apart. Although Su Zimo had never seen this ferocious being before, he could vaguely guess that this was another one of the primordial races, the Bloodvine race. Legend has it that the Bloodvine race lived by devouring the blood of all living beings. It did not even reject bloodline from the other primordial races. Any living being that wandered into the territory of the Bloodvine race would be shredded and devoured, turned into nourishment for themselves without even bones left. These were extremely violent beings. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely recalled something. However, at that moment, he was in a dangerous spot and could not protect himself. Knight's spirit could not be saved either and he was tense. He did not have the mood to think about it carefully and the thought vanished as quickly as it appeared. Chapter 1306. Immortal Sword's Death. Chapter 1306. Immortal Sword's Death. Shoo! A golden light flashed and emitted a scorching aura. The temperature released by the golden light seemed to be even higher than the Samadhi Dao fire. It was extremely fast and circled around Su Zimo's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. Su Zimo's Dharma characteristic waved his 6 arms but could not grab the golden light. Buzz! Buzz! The heaven and earth Dharma characteristic shuddered and a gigantic wound appeared on its chest. Its dharmic powers were drained. However, this heaven and earth Dharma characteristic had already surpassed the extreme realm and its dharmic powers were condensed. The Samadhi Dao fire burned furiously and stopped the loss of dharmic powers instantly. The golden light paused and revealed its true appearance. It was the Golden Crow Third Prince. Hee hee. The Golden Crow Third Prince laughed. The flames on your Dharma characteristic are truly interesting. It's only slightly weaker than my Golden Crow flames. The Golden Crow race possessed the bloodline of the sun and their bodies burned with flames. They resided above the East Sea and beneath the Fusang tree. They were divine birds of the primordial era. Not only was the Golden Crow race extremely fast and not inferior to the Rakshasa race, they even possessed extremely terrifying golden flames that could incinerate all living beings. None of the conjoint body mighty figures present dared to approach Su Zimo's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, afraid that they would be tainted by the Samadhi Dao fire. However, the Golden Crow Third Prince was fearless. Not only did he approach Su Zimo's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, he even took the opportunity to reveal his Golden Crow feet and scratch a gigantic wound on the Dharma characteristic's chest. Su Zimo's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was blocked by just 4 experts of the primordial races. The bloodline of the primordial races was strong, and they were the oldest living beings. Conjoint body mighty figures of the primordial races had combat strength comparable to half-martial ancestors of the human race. The strongest conjoint body monster incarnates among the primordial races with the purest bloodlines could even suppress half-martial ancestors of the human race. Although Su Zimo's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic had surpassed the extreme realm, It could not defend against the power of a half-martial ancestor. Night Spirit was 100 feet away. Normally, 100 feet was an extremely short distance. But now, there were hundreds of beings from the primordial races in between, and dozens of them were all conjoint body experts. That 100 feet was like an insurmountable chasm. Immortal sword, pay with your life. Right then, a roar sounded not far away. Instantly, rumbling fiend chi surged into the skies, blotting out the skies and pitch black as ink. The entire world dimmed. Even the experts of the primordial 6 races glanced sideways. Under Yen Beichen's killing intent, Immortal Sword was already covered in injuries and his face was ghastly pale. Yen Beichen strode forward and slashed with the hatred fiend saber in his hands. Instantly, it descended on Immortal Sword's head with a torrential fiend chi as though it wanted to devour him into sludge. Ah! Immortal Sword shrieked with a menacing expression as his features contorted. Gripping his sword with both hands, his sword buzzed and released 6 bedazzling dermic patterns that blocked the hatred fiend saber. Clang! The sound of metal clashing echoed in an ear-piercing manner. Sword and saber clashed while Yen Beichen and Immortal Sword stood motionlessly. Instantly, the world seemed to have stopped. Snap! The sword was broken. Immediately after, the wounds on Immortal Sword ruptured and spewed out blood mists. His eyes dimmed and his life force drained rapidly. Yen Beichen's hateful slash destroyed all the life force in Immortal Sword's body. That slash unleashed all the hatred in Yen Beichen's heart all these years. Immortal Sword could not defend against it at all. Even his destiny dermic weapon was severed by the hatred fiend saber. Foo-foo, foo-foo. Immortal Sword's mouth twitched as though he wanted to laugh. However, boiling blood flowed out of his mouth and let out a strange sound. Even if you kill me, why you can't revive that slut either. Immortal Sword had a deranged expression and stuttered. Why? Lost. Ha ha, ha ha ha. Immortal Sword's laughter came to an abrupt stop as his entire body exploded into a blood mist. His body and spirit were destroyed without a corpse remaining. Even though Immortal Sword knew that he was going to die, he did not want Yen Beichen to feel good before his death. He was best at playing with people's hearts. Otherwise, people like Qin Pianran and Dao Lord Cloud Rain would not have died in his hands. His final words had indeed struck Yen Beichen's sore spot. I've lost. I've lost. Although Immortal Sword was executed, Yen Beichen did not feel as happy as he had imagined. He trembled with a pained expression and fell into endless guilt and self-blame. His mind seemed to have gone blank as he murmured to himself. He's right, Pianran. You can't revive. It's all my fault. Foo-foo. When he saw that, the Golden Crow Third Prince sneered. By the looks of it, that person is of no threat and isn't worthy of us attacking. That's right. It's just a second hatred. He's of no threat and will commit suicide sooner or later, the mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye Race said indifferently. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly realized something. The Hatred Sutra was indeed powerful. Yen Beichen inherited the legacy of the Fiend Emperor Hatred and his combat strength increased exponentially. He could be considered as the second Fiend Emperor Hatred. However, what happened to the Fiend Emperor Hatred? The deeper Yen Beichen cultivated the Hatred Sutra, the harder it would be for him to extricate himself. Right now, he would only fall into this giddying pain when he thought about Qin Pianran. As time passed by, if he remained immersed in that pain, he would probably never regain his senses and make the same choice as Dao Lord Hatred. He would commit suicide. Su Zimo did not dare to think about it, nor did he have the energy for now. That was the danger that Yen Beichen might encounter in the future. Right now, the most important thing for Su Zimo was to rescue Night Spirit and escape from this place. Zimo, let me help you. Right then, Extreme Fire had just killed Purple Flame and sensed Su Zimo's condition, rushing over without hesitation. Watch out, Master. Su Zimo's expression changed as he reminded hurriedly. Although Extreme Fire had just entered the conjoint body realm for more than 100 years, his body had fused with a supreme Dharma characteristic and his dermic powers were strong. His combat strength was also at the top of the conjoint body realm. Even against conjoint body mighty figures of supersex, Extreme Fire would not be disadvantaged. But now the people in front of Su Zimo were all experts from the primordial races, and their combat strength had far surpassed the conjoint body realm. A mighty figure of the heavenly eye race stood in midair with his hands behind his back motionlessly. All of a sudden, a crack appeared on the glabella of the heavenly eye mighty figure. It was as though an eye had opened and countless mysterious and powerful runes surged within, as though they contained the strongest power in the world. The entire heaven and earth valley trembled when that eye opened. The mountain cracked and gravel rolled down. The crowd was shocked. What sort of power was that? A single eye was enough to cause such a commotion. A dark light shot out from the eye and arrived instantly. The moment Extreme Fire moved, his heart skipped a beat and he felt a strong sense of danger. Without hesitation, he shielded his destiny dermic weapon, the weapon tripod, in front of him. At the same time, a dark light descended with a destructive aura. Clang! The dark light struck Extreme Fire's weapon tripod with a loud bang. Extreme Fire shuddered and his figure could not help but fly back as he spat out a huge mouthful of blood with a pale expression. The first layer of his weapon tripod was penetrated by the dark light. To be able to penetrate Extreme Fire's destiny mighty figure dermic weapon with a single gaze, how terrifying was the power in that eye. Chapter 1307. You're the one with a death wish. Chapter 1307. You're the one with a death wish. The reason why the Primordial 9 races were called the Primordial 9 races and ruled over the world was because every single one of them possessed extremely powerful inheritances and capabilities. Humans were innately weak. Even in their prime, they might not be able to kill ferocious beasts. However, it was different for the Primordial 9 races. When these races were born, they possessed innately powerful abilities. For example, the Golden Crow race was born with 3 legs and could spread their wings and fly, wielding the sun god fire. The Golden Crow race could even kill spirit beasts and demons with ease, let alone ferocious beasts. The Dragon race was born with sharp fangs and claws and controlled the 5 elements. Every race specialized in different abilities. For example, although the Heavenly Eye race's bloodline and physique were far superior to humans, they were only ranked in the middle of the Primordial 9 races. The strongest technique of the Heavenly Eye race was the eye on their glabella. That eye was also known as the Heavenly Eye, the gathering spot of the strongest powers of the Heavenly Eye race. That was also the origin of the name of their race, Heavenly Eye. The visual technique of the Heavenly Eye race was the strongest among the 10,000 races. Although it was only a dark light, it came from the Heavenly Eye. If it was any other conjoint body mighty figure, they would have died with a single glance from this mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race. Extreme Fire's innate combat strength was top tier among the human race. However, he had just entered the conjoint body realm after all and was still far inferior to the mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race who attacked. Extreme Fire's destiny dermic weapon was destroyed and that implicated and severely injured him. In fact, he fell from midair uncontrollably with a dispirited expression. Grandmaster! Tao Lord Scarlet Star exclaimed and rushed forward to protect Extreme Fire. Hurry and take Master away from this place. Su Zimo immediately sent a voice transmission to Tao Lord Scarlet Star. Uncle Master, but you! Tao Lord Scarlet Star had a hesitant expression. If you guys are dragged into this battle, even the entire 100 Refinement sect won't be able to handle it. Leave quickly and don't linger here. Su Zimo's tone turned even more hurried. Extreme Fire's combat strength was greatly reduced after he was severely injured by a mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race. Even if he stayed here, he could not help and might even distract Su Zimo. At that thought, Tao Lord Scarlet Star finally made up his mind and hollered, 100 Refinement sect, follow me. 100 Refinement sect was the first to retreat from the battlefield. Senior Crane, leave with the cultivators of Ethereal Peak as well. Su Zimo sent another voice transmission. For some reason, he felt uncomfortable, as though he had neglected something extremely important. This Heaven and Earth Valley made him feel uneasy as well. That uneasiness did not come from the Primordial 6 races. Tao Lord Desolate Marshal, the fact that you're able to condense a Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic that's beyond the extreme realm and is 99 feet tall is indeed unprecedented. God Han Ling said slowly, however, you still have to die today. In front of us Primordial 6 races, your bullshit Dharma characteristic is nothing. Rakshasa Feng Tian sneered with a menacing expression. The god and Rakshasa race truly have a bad memory. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he said murderously, "Seems like I haven't killed enough of you guys in Myriad Phenomenon City. I wasn't ruthless enough." Even against a group of beings from the primordial races, Su Zimo's aura did not weaken at all. Even Immortal Sword did not dare to say anything after being slapped on the cheeks by an expert of the primordial races. However, Su Zimo could not conceal his killing intent against the primordial 6 races. "Audacious! You're asking for death!" Experts from the Rakshasa and God race hollered. God Han Ling's expression darkened instantly. "And desolate marshal, you must have a death wish." Rakshasa Feng Tian was enraged as well and shrieked. The voice of the Rakshasa race was sharp and unpleasant. The battle in Myriad Phenomenon City was an immense humiliation for the Rakshasa and God race. In the cultivation world, the human race kept that battle a secret. However, it was widespread among the primordial 9 races and the Rakshasa and God race suffered immense gossip. After all, it was not glorious to lose to the humans and be completely annihilated. "You're the one with a death wish." Suddenly, a cold voice sounded from the crowd. Immediately after, a figure that was more than 30 feet tall appeared. It shone with a scarlet glow and emitted a scorching aura as it descended behind Rakshasa Feng Tian. The figure was extremely fast and came out of nowhere. Even the experts of the primordial 6 races on the battlefield could not react to it, let alone the surrounding cultivators. "Who's there?" Many experts of the primordial races only managed to shout in time, but they could not make out the figure's appearance clearly. They could only make out a rough outline. The scarlet figure arrived behind Rakshasa Feng Tian and extended its palm without hesitation, revealing sharp claws that shimmered coldly as it grabbed the latter's head. Rakshasa Feng Tian was alarmed and felt his scalp tingle. Without thinking twice, he flapped his wings and fled into the distance. The speed of the Rakshasa race was way too fast. They were one of the fastest among the primordial 9 races. In that split second, Rakshasa Feng Tian transformed into a black streak of light and tried to break free from the envelopment of that menacing claw. All of a sudden, the arm of the figure crackled and expanded by 3 feet. Instantly, it caught up to Rakshasa Feng Tian and grabbed down once more. A blood mist spewed out. "Ah!" Rakshasa Feng Tian shrieked tragically. His reaction was fast enough, and he had already pushed his movement technique to its limits. Even so, the figure caught up to him and tore apart one of his meat wings with its sharp claws. A large piece was ripped off and fresh blood spurted. That scene was extremely tragic. Even the experts of the primordial 6 races gasped. Even with the speed of Rakshasa Feng Tian, he could not escape unscathed. If that figure had attacked any of them earlier on, who would have survived? The moment that thought crossed their minds, another change happened on the battlefield. The scarlet figure did not stop even after it ripped Rakshasa Feng Tian's meat wing. It continued upwards with its momentum and suddenly coiled its 3-foot-tall body that resembled an anaconda around the latter. Its blood chi surged and it exerted strength. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of bones cracking could be heard from within Rakshasa Feng Tian's body. Under countless gazes, Rakshasa Feng Tian's body was squeezed into a completely contorted shape. Rakshasa Feng Tian's eyeballs bulged out and his face was bloodshot. With a purple and green expression, his blood chi dissipated rapidly. At the conjoint body realm, one could regrow their limbs. Even if his body was severely injured, there was still a chance for him to recover after some time to recuperate. However, at that moment, Rakshasa Feng Tian was bound by the scarlet figure. No matter how fast he was, he could not break free and was even enduring immense pain. Shoo! An essence spirit burrowed out of the top of the Rakshasa's head and tried to flee into the distance with a panicked expression. Swoosh! Suddenly, the scarlet figure opened its mouth and spat out a tongue of flames, pulling the essence spirit into its mouth and burning it to ashes in the blink of an eye. Rakshasa Feng Tian was dead. Chapter 1308. Dragon True Body. Chapter 1308. Dragon True Body. The moment Rakshasa Feng Tian died, heaven and earth valley fell into a dead silence. This scene was much more shocking than the death of a conjoint body mighty figure of the human race. Conjoint body experts of the primordial 6 races could suppress mighty figures of the human race with ease. Even a monster incarnate of the human race like Extreme Fire was severely injured by a single move from a mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race. But now, a mighty figure of the primordial races was killed by an unknown living being in a flash right in front of everyone. Who is that? Who else would dare to help Desolate Marshal and even kill an expert of the Rakshasa race? His methods are way too ruthless. Could it be a half-martial ancestor or a Mahayana patriarch? All the cultivators looked over and were stunned. To be precise, the scarlet figure could not be considered as a human at all. More than 30 feet tall, its scarlet hair was like flames and it was covered in scarlet scales that wrapped around its cheeks, revealing only a pair of bright eyes that resembled 2 fireballs. It was definitely from an alien race. The knuckles on its gigantic claw protruded like molten steel and were filled with a metallic luster. Its claws were extremely sharp and were even dripping with the grisly blood of Rakshasa Fong Tian. The strange thing was that only the left hand of the alien being had this menacing claw. Its right hand was extremely fair and looked no different from a human hand. The scarlet figure emitted an extremely violent aura and its blood chi surged. It was not disadvantaged even against the primordial 6 races. Many cultivators looked at the scarlet-haired alien being and felt as though they were looking at one of the primordial races. Could that outsider be one of the primordial 9 races as well? That can't be, right? There doesn't seem to be any race from the primordial 9 races that looks like this. This outsider looks a little like a dragon. Now that you mention it, I seem to have recalled something. A cultivator reminisced. I heard that back in Myriad Phenomenon City, Desolate Marshal transformed into a dragon and killed the alien races. He seemed to be in this half-dragon form. You mean to say that this outsider is Desolate Marshal? That's impossible. The thought was truly ridiculous. Tao Lord Desolate Marshal stood at the side with his green robes and black hair, extremely different from the scarlet-haired alien before them. If that scarlet-haired alien was Desolate Marshal, who was the green-robed, black-haired one? Could it be a clone of Tao Lord Desolate Marshal? In reality, some of the cultivators had already guessed the truth. That scarlet figure was the Dragon True Body. The moment the Dragon True Body appeared, he did not hold back at all and appeared in his half-dragon form right away when he faced the experts of the primordial 6 races. Su Zimo's expression did not change when he heard the discussions around him. He did not care about the exposure of his Dragon True Body at all. Even if everyone in the world knew that he had a Dragon True Body, it would not matter and the dragon race would not be implicated because of it. That was because no one knew that this Dragon True Body was the young master of the dragon race. No one would have expected that a half-dragon alien would become the young master of the dragon race. Of course, that was not an absolute as well. Someone from the primordial 6 races had doubts. Wu Xie narrowed his eyes and shone with a faint green glow in deep thought. Back then, the battle between the Dragon True Body and Long Tsong happened after Wu Xie left. Therefore, he had not seen the appearance of the Dragon True Body when it transformed into a half-dragon, and naturally did not recognize it right away. However, Wu Xie had lived for so long and was experienced and sharp. He could vaguely sense that the scarlet-haired alien with dragon scales before him had something to do with the young master of the dragon race that he had seen in the Dragonbone Valley. Where did this beast come from? The mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race said coldly. The Golden Crow Third Prince sniffed gently. Indeed, this beast has the bloodline aura of the dragon race. He's probably a remnant bastard left behind by the dragon race. Fufu, I thought that it was some powerful character. God Honling smiled gently. So, he's only at the Dharma characteristic realm. Rakshasa Fong Tian was careless and has no one but himself to blame for his death. Those words were not wrong. If the Dragon True Body had not appeared all of a sudden such that Rakshasa Fong Tian was caught off guard, he would not have been killed in a flash. Right then, a breeze blew and 2 pitch-black beams of light appeared at an extremely fast speed, hiding behind the Dragon True Body silently. The 2 beams of light that suddenly appeared were 2 Dharma characteristic Rakshasas. The 2 Rakshasas could not hold it back any longer and wanted nothing more than to take revenge for Rakshasa Fong Tian. As such, they sneaked over and raised their curved sabers, chopping towards the head of the Dragon True Body. Right in front of them, The scarlet-haired being did not even turn back, as though he did not notice anything. A ferocious glint flashed through the eyes of the two Rakshasas. It was as though they were witnessing the grisly scene of the scarlet-haired being's head tumbling and a fountain of blood spewing. However, they did not know that their movements could not be hidden in the face of the dragon true body's spirit perception. You must have a death wish. All of a sudden, the dragon true body spat out 2 words and swung his arm in reverse without turning back. Like a divine elephant's trunk, it whipped a Rakshasa with the might of stars. Bang! Before the Rakshasa could say anything, he was ripped apart and his blood stained the void. What sort of strength was it to be able to shatter the body of a Rakshasa with a casual punch? The other Rakshasa was shocked. Before he could think further, a dragon claw had already grabbed his curved saber with a loud crack. The curved saber was shattered into pieces by the menacing dragon claw. He reached out with his dragon claw and grabbed the Rakshasa's head, crushing the latter's essence spirit and killing him on the spot. In the blink of an eye, 2 more Rakshasas died. Where did this monster come from? He is killing the Rakshasa race as easy as killing ants? We've never seen the combat strength of that taboo called night spirit before. However, in my opinion, this scarlet-haired being is the true taboo. The crowd was speechless. The current situation of the Dharma characteristic ranking this time round had probably exceeded everyone's expectations. All the cultivators were staring at the battlefield and none of them noticed that Heavenly Secrets, who was not far away, had a faint smile on his face and a strange blood glint in his eyes. The wounds on his body had already recovered to normal. This beast is interesting. The Golden Crow Third Prince frowned. He can kill the Rakshasa race with ease despite being of the same cultivation realm. The mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race raised his brow. The Rakshasa race of this generation seems a little weak. Is that so? The Dragon True Body's aura was berserk as he shouted, I'll test out the methods of your Heavenly Eye race then. The reason why the Dragon True Body came was to kill the experts of the Primordial races and would not waste his breath on them. Furthermore, this Heavenly Eye race being had just injured Extreme Fire severely. The reason why the Dragon True Body targeted him was also to take revenge for Extreme Fire. The mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race frowned and said coldly, You must have a death wish. How dare you challenge me? You're the one I'm going to kill. Before his sentence was finished, the Dragon True Body had already arrived before the Heavenly Eye race. The mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race had a grim expression. It was only at that moment that he sensed the violent and scorching aura released by the Dragon True Body. It was as though he wanted to tear everything apart and incinerate all living beings. This is bad. This beast's blood chi is way too strong. The mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race was alarmed. Chapter 1309. Massacre. Chapter 1309. Massacre. The Dragon True Body was at the Dharma characteristic realm and was a major cultivation realm apart from the conjoint body experts of the Primordial 6 races present. Even at the Dharma characteristic realm, Night Spirit could not escape the pursuit of the Primordial 6 races. However, the Dragon True Body was different from Night Spirit. The Dragon True Body was not a pure dragon. His body and blood chi were cultivated with a mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness as the foundation and were his strongest trump cards. For the Heavenly Eye and Rakshasa races that did not specialize in physique and bloodline, they were most likely doomed when the Dragon True Body closed into them. A crack suddenly appeared on the glabella of the mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race. The terrifying Heavenly Eye opened once more and chaos seemed to spread within. Countless mysterious runes surged as though the world had just opened up. A dark light burst forth. No matter how fast the Dragon True Body was, it could not match his visual technique. The moment the Heavenly Eye opened, the visual technique descended. At that moment, the two parties were so close that it was impossible to dodge. The expression of the Dragon True Body was unchanged as his eyes shone brightly with 2 blazing flames and 2 scarlet beams of light. The power of divine power spread. It was an innate divine power awakened by the Dragon True Body, Illumination Dragon Eye. This remnant beast of the dragon race with an impure bloodline has actually awakened the innate divine powers of the Illumination Dragon lineage? Wu Xie's eyes flickered and he was even more suspicious. The Golden Crow Third Prince sneered. Fufu, this beast is way too ignorant. He's courting death by using the Illumination Dragon Eye to fight against the visual techniques and divine powers of the Heavenly Eye race. The Heavenly Eye race reigns supreme over all visual techniques in the world. The might of the Illumination Dragon Eye was considered top tier among many visual techniques. However, against the visual technique of the Heavenly Eye race, there was no doubt that it was inferior. After all, the Heavenly Eye on the forehead possessed the bloodline essence of the Heavenly Eye race and the profoundness of their dharmic powers. Boom! Before the Golden Crow Third Prince finished his sentence, two scarlet beams of light collided against the dark light with a loud bang. Ah! A tragic cry sounded from the battlefield as a figure staggered and retreated continuously. Fufu, I've already said that this beast was asking for it by trying to challenge the visual technique of the Heavenly Eye race. The Golden Crow Third Prince was mocking when his expression changed and his smile froze. The experts of the Primordial 6 races widened their eyes in disbelief as well. Indeed, victory was determined instantly in a clash of visual techniques. However, unlike what the experts of the Primordial 6 races thought, the one that cried in tragic defeat was not the dragon true body, but the mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race. How is that possible? God Honling frowned and murmured instinctively. This beast is only at the Dharma characteristic realm, and yet he can injure a mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race with a single visual technique? The mighty figure of the Bloodvine race was bewildered as well. This can't be the Illumination Dragon Eye. The Golden Crow Third Prince said sternly, the Illumination Dragon Eye can't be this powerful. To be precise, the visual technique released by his dragon true body was indeed not the Illumination Dragon Eye, but the Illumination Eye. That was because there was an illumination stone in his eyes that was an utmost treasure of the universe and was even older than the creation green lotus. The visual technique of the Heavenly Eye race was indeed stronger than the Illumination Dragon Eye. However, the might of the Illumination Dragon Eye that was fused with the Illumination Stone had more than doubled. If it was a Tao Lord of the Heavenly Eye race at the same cultivation realm, the eye on the forehead of the Heavenly Eye race being would have gone blind from that single collision. But now, the mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race only had a pained expression and a trickle of blood from his Heavenly Eye. His foundation was not injured and he would definitely recover after some recuperation. However, the dragon true body would not give him a chance. After that head-on visual technique clash, the dragon true body had a cold expression without any emotions in his eyes. He strode forward and extended his dragon claw, grabbing the head of the mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race. The dragon claw was sharp and pierced the head of the mighty figure of the Heavenly Eye race instantly, crushing his consciousness and destroying his essence spirit. The dragon true body burst forth consecutively and killed another mighty figure of the primordial races. Elder! Many Heavenly Eye race beings were enraged and exclaimed. Hum, hum, hum. Dozens of Heavenly Eye race beings, be it at the Dharma characteristic or conjoint body realm, opened their Heavenly Eye at the same time and terrifying power burst forth instantly. Instantly, the world shook and a shuddering aura descended. The spirit perception of the dragon true body alerted him and he left a long time ago. In a flash, he charged into the camp of the Primordial 6 races. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Dark lights descended one after another. They did not manage to hit the dragon true body and instead severely injured the witch, Golden Crow and Bloodvine races who could not dodge in time. The Rakshasa race relied on their immense physique and blood chi to avoid being struck by the dark lights. Have you gone insane, Heavenly Eye race? Shut your eyes! The Golden Crow Third Prince roared. Once a visual technique was released, there was no way to retrieve it. Even if many experts of the Heavenly Eye race saw their visual techniques charging towards the other experts of the primordial races and injured others by mistake, they had no way of dealing with it. After that commotion, the camp of hundreds of experts from the primordial races fell into chaos. Of course, there were also many dark lights that charged into the human race crowd. Even the experts of the primordial races could not defend against the visual techniques of the Heavenly Eye race. It was even worse for the human cultivators. Even some conjoint body mighty figures were killed on the spot by the visual techniques of the Heavenly Eye race. They suffered an undeserved calamity. The cultivators of 100 Refinement sect and Ethereal sect had long retreated and were lucky to survive. On the other side, the dragon true body arrived beside a mighty figure of the witch race amidst the chaos. He reached out with his dragon claw and grabbed the head of the mighty figure of the witch race. bastard, how dare you! The mighty figure of the witch race waved his white bone staff and chanted an extremely sinister incantation. A ghastly green palm was swiftly formed on his bone staff. Roar! The dragon true body suddenly cried into the skies, letting out a loud and clear roar that could break metal and rocks. The dragon roar reverberated through the world in a deafening manner. The mighty figure of the witch race shuddered and his eyes bulged, turning bloodshot instantly. A dragon roar was the strongest killing technique of the dragon race to begin with. A dragon roar could shock all the races. If it was a human cultivator, that dragon roar would have ruptured their bodies at this distance. The mighty figure of the witch race was not in a good state either. His eyes were bloodshot and blood oozed from his nostrils, mouth and ears. To begin with, the witch race did not specialize in bloodline and physique. Furthermore, he was interrupted by the dragon roar before he could complete his secret skill incantation and froze on the spot. The dragon true body did not freeze at all. With a cold expression, a menacing dragon claw descended before the dragon roar could finish and tore the mighty figure of the witch race apart. A mighty figure of the witch race was dead. For primordial races like the witch and heavenly eye race, they did not have strong physiques and bloodlines. Once the dragon true body closed in, they would most likely die. The dragon true body caused a massacre everywhere after it descended. Chapter 1310, Barren. Chapter 1310, Barren. Of course, the dragon true body was not invincible without equal across the primordial 6 races present. The Rakshasa and Golden Crow races were extremely fast. Even with the dragon true body's speed, he could not catch up to them within a short period of time. After the blood vine race reverted to their true forms, there were many dense vines. Even if a vine was severed, it would not be able to hurt their roots and it would be difficult for anyone to get close. As for the god race, their bloodline was their forte. Even if the dragon true body fought them head-on, he would not be able to take them down forcefully. Therefore, the dragon true body could only engage the witch and heavenly eye races in melee combat and kill them. However, as time passed by, the primordial 6 races gradually calmed down under the lead of their mighty figures. They stabilized their formation and took the god race as the main force against the dragon true body. The blood vine race waved many vines and restricted the dragon true body's movement space continuously. The golden crow and Rakshasa races circled around the dragon true body and caused constant disruptions. As for the witch and heavenly eye races, they gradually retreated to the outer perimeter and distanced themselves from the dragon true body as they began to release visual techniques and witchcraft. The dragon true body had a grim expression. He knew very well that once the formation of the primordial 6 races was formed, he would fall into an endless battle and might not even be able to kill a single one of them. It was even more impossible if he wanted to save Night Spirit. Lowlife, let's see what else you've got. Although an old man from the god race had white hair, he was hale and hearty. Tall and bulky, he surged with golden blood chi and charged towards the dragon true body, punching immediately. A blinding golden light burst forth from that fist, as though a divine dragon had appeared. Even the voids were trembling. The blood chi and physique of the god race was way too strong. Even an old man from the god race could release such a terrifying attack. Old dog, how dare you scold me? The dragon true body did not avoid or dodge. His eyes were cold and shone with a cold glint. Suddenly, he flicked his palm and grabbed the old man of the god race's fist. You must be tired of living. I'll send you on your way to hell now. Little beast, how dare you spout nonsense? You think that you can kill me given your strength? The old man from the god race had a disdainful expression. Up till this point of the battle, more than 30 beings of the primordial races had died to the hands of the dragon true body. However, most of them were at the Dharma characteristic realm. Furthermore, none of the mighty figures of the god race died in the hands of the dragon true body. The dragon true body grinned and a grey mist condensed in his extended palm. It looked ordinary without any terrifying power spreading out. What's that? The old man from the god race frowned slightly. Although he did not know the origin of the grey fog, he felt a vague sense of uneasiness. Instantly, the palm of the dragon true body gripped the old man's fist tightly and the grey fog shrouded the latter rapidly. There's no feeling? The god race expert was slightly stunned. When his divine fist struck the gray fog, it was soft and weak, as though his power had sank into the ocean and vanished. Although the attack did not injure the dragon true body, the gray fog released by the dragon true body did not injure him either. Ha 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 ha. The old man of the god race reared his head in laughter with a mocking expression. What nonsense Dharmic art is that? How dare you embarrass yourself? You! His sentence came to an abrupt stop. Suddenly, he felt his lifespan draining at a rate of 1,000 years per breath. He could not stop it at all. What's going on? How could this be? The old man of the god race retreated instinctively, wanting to distance himself from the dragon true body. However, the dragon true body gripped his fist tightly like a leech. Immediately after, the gray fog wrapped around the old man from the god race the entire time. At that moment, the other experts of the primordial races noticed something amiss with the old man from the god race as well. Elder, your face. God Hunling's eyes widened in shock. Under countless gazes, the old man's face aged at a visible speed. Wrinkles appeared on his initially smooth face. His lifespan was greatly reduced. His lifespan decreased and his blood chi began to deteriorate as well. The old man from the god race reacted slower and could not break free from the entanglement of the dragon true body. Now that time had passed, he had even less strength to break free. The old man from the god race opened his mouth and wanted to roar for help. However, his voice turned incomparably old and a strange sound came from the depths of his throat. Everyone present could sense the life draining from the old man's body. Before long, the eyes of the old man from the god race widened and he fell from midair without any signs of life. He died with grievances. Even till his death, the old man of the god race did not know what Dharmic art he died under. What sort of a technique is this? I've never seen it before. It seems like it can reduce one's lifespan. He's only at the Dharma characteristic realm, but the Dharmic art he released can even reduce the lifespan of conjoint body mighty figures? Furthermore, isn't the speed of that lifespan reduction way too fast? The experts of the primordial 6 races were shocked. They had inherited history and had seen all sorts of races and Dharmic arts. Even with their knowledge, they had never seen such terrifying methods. Everyone, don't panic. The Golden Crow Third Prince said in a deep voice, if this Dharmic art is so powerful, it must take a huge toll on him as well. He won't be able to release it again in a short period of time. Not necessarily. The voice of the dragon true body sounded with an incomparably cold tone. Primordial races, I'll let you have a taste of Barren. Swoosh. The dragon true body condensed a Dharmic art swiftly and released an extremely strange Dharmic power fluctuation with his body as the center. The dragon true body condensed a Dharmic art swiftly and released an extremely strange Dharmic power fluctuation with his body as the center. After the dragon true body entered the Dragonbone Valley, he released Barren once and even alarmed the elders of the dragon race. Due to the terror of Barren, the elders of the dragon race had an agreement with him that he was not allowed to release it in the Dragonbone Valley or against dragons. After all, the lifespan reduction in Barren was irreversible. That was way too terrifying. Nobody wanted to lose their lifespans for no reason. Now that he was surrounded by the primordial 6 races, the dragon true body no longer had any reservations. The power of Barren burst forth instantly and surged towards the primordial 6 races. His dragon true body did not have to consider injuring others by mistake in this battlefield. Since the primordial 6 races were right beside him, their experts were the first to be enveloped by Barren. What's that? The expressions of the experts of the primordial 6 races changed. The Golden Crow and Rakshasa races made use of their movement techniques and fled into the distance immediately. The Witch race and Heavenly Eyes race had already retreated to the outer perimeter and were lucky to be spared. However, some of the God and Bloodvine races were not so lucky. The God race had always been in melee combat with the dragon true body. When Barren burst forth, it enveloped them instantly. After the Bloodvine race transformed into their true forms, they rooted themselves underground and were unable to move. They were enveloped by Barren as well. Entering Barren was akin to sinking into a swamp. Instantly, one's movement speed would become extremely slow and it would be difficult for them to move or escape. The lifespans of some of the God and Bloodvine races in the center of Barren decreased rapidly at 1,000 years per breath. Wherever the gray-colored ripples passed, life was draining rapidly. The entire world went barren. Chapter 1311. Unexpected Calamity. Chapter 1311. Unexpected Calamity. Although the primordial 9 races possessed heaven-defying combat strength and reigned through history, the strength, bloodline and physique that each race specialized in were different. The difference in lifespan between the races was immense as well. For example, among the primordial 9 races, the dragon and Kuan races had the longest lifespans while the bloodvine race had the shortest lifespan. The bloodvine race were plants cultivated into spirits. Coupled with the treacherous environment of the primordial era, they evolved many cruel methods to absorb the essence of the flesh and blood of living beings, allowing them to develop into a massive race. However, at their base, the bloodvine race did not possess long lifespans and were similar to the human race. In other words, the Tao Lords of the bloodvine race present only had a lifespan of around 10,000 years. Even a mighty figure of the bloodvine race only had a lifespan of more than 20,000 years. Although the other races were also losing their lifespans within the range of Barren, they could still hold out. For example, some mighty figures of the god race had already escaped from the envelopment of Barren with their powerful bodies and blood chi. However, for the bloodvine race, the damage caused by Barren was way too much and could be considered as fatal. The bloodvine race was rooted underground and relied on their vines to fight against others. Unable to move, they were enveloped by Barren and could only watch as their lifespans decreased rapidly. Some of the Tao Lords of the bloodvine race that were closer to Su Zimo had lifespans of more than 10,000 years and died after a few breaths. 1,000 years per breath. That was 10,000 years in 10 breaths. Most of the mighty figures of the bloodvine race that were here were more than 10,000 years old. How many breaths could they withstand? Even if some mighty figures of the bloodvine race reacted and took on human form, they had to fight with their full strength to escape from the radius of Barren. Their lifespans were reduced significantly as well as their faces aged rapidly due to their weakened blood chi. How could this be? A mighty figure of the bloodvine race fled far away. When he sensed the situation within his body, his eyes widened and he shrieked in disbelief. I've already left the range of this dermic art, but my lifespan can't be recovered. This dermic art is way too domineering and consumes lifespan irreversibly. God Honling had already escaped as well and said with lingering fear. Normally speaking, their cultivation realms were above this scarlet-haired alien. However, even they wanted to avoid that dermic art. The bloodvine race shuddered when they saw their clansmen die one after another. Perhaps out of anger or fear, they grit their teeth and said, "We have to kill that scarlet-haired alien. This beast is even more terrifying than that Tao Lord Desolate Marshal." The Golden Crow Third Prince added sternly. "Kill! Kill!" A few mighty figures of the bloodvine race lost their lifespans. In their wrath, their killing intent surged and countless bloodvines extended, charging into the crowd. Every human face on top of the bloodvines opened their mouths and chomped down on the head of a cultivator as their fangs constricted. In the blink of an eye, the human cultivator was devoured and turned into rumbling life force essence that replenished the blood chi of the mighty figure of the bloodvine race. This was a catastrophe for the cultivation world of the major sects and factions. It was difficult for most cultivators to defend against the massacre of the bloodvine race. The vines danced and could even seal off all escape routes, trapping and devouring the cultivators within. In that short period of time, even a few conjoint body mighty figures were not spared and were devoured by a mighty figure of the bloodvine race without a corpse left. The crowd was in chaos. This was an unexpected calamity. Countless cultivators had horrified expressions as they shrieked, cursed and fled for their lives. They had not expected that the primordial races that were initially hunting down Tao Lord Desolate Marshal would suddenly turn towards them and start a massacre. The ancient war was way too distant. Most human cultivators had already forgotten that the reason why the primordial races received their title was because they possessed heaven-defying combat strength and were fearless and frighteningly savage. Joining forces with a primordial race was equivalent to asking a tiger for its skin. Without absolute strength, one might find themselves allies with the primordial races at one moment and food for the latter immediately after. The bloodvine race went on a massacre, regardless of sect, aristocratic family or upper sections. Even the paragons and monster incarnates of supersects were like ants in their eyes. At that moment, be it Heavenly Dipper Sect, Sword Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace or Chaos Essence Sect, all of them had cultivators that were dead. When Su Zimo saw that, his expression was cold and he was unmoved. Earlier on, these super sects had a torrential aura and declared that they wanted to kill him and Night Spirit here. In the blink of an eye, they were in such a state. They brought it upon themselves. Even if the lifespan reduction at the outer perimeter of Barren was extremely slow, no primordial race would be willing to step in and waste their lifespans for no reason. He managed to push back experts of the primordial 6 races with the might of Barren. In a flash, Su Zimo's 99 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic guarded him and arrived beside Night Spirit swiftly, wanting to help the latter up. However, when he grabbed Night Spirit's arm and lifted it, the latter couldn't be moved. Although the Green Lotus True Body was not as strong as the Dragon True Body that had a frightening bloodline, its strength was not to be underestimated as well. It could lift an entire mountain, let alone Night Spirit. All right. Night Spirit's expression changed and he grunted. Su Zimo focused his gaze. His tug did not manage to pull Night Spirit up. Instead, it triggered the chains on Night Spirit. The iron hoop tightened and the spikes pierced through Night Spirit's flesh once more, causing blood to flow out. Su Zimo was anxious. If he wanted to save Night Spirit, he had to break the chains. Although Barren was terrifying, the dermic powers on the side of the Dragon True Body were not endless and could not sustain much longer. The experts of the primordial 6 races stood guard at the outer perimeter, ready to attack once more after Barren dissipated. Up till this point of the battle, more than 100 beings of the primordial races had fallen. However, most of them were Dharma characteristic Tao lords. Not many mighty figures of the primordial races died. In other words, Su Zimo and Night Spirit would still be doomed if the experts of the primordial 6 races surrounded them once more. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, Night Spirit, bear with it. I'll try and break this chain. Night Spirit pursed his lips and nodded. Su Zimo gripped the Creation Lotus platform tightly and smashed it towards the chains on Night Spirit. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. Su Zimo shuddered and felt a tremendous recoil surge into his body. His palm went numb and the Creation Lotus platform nearly flew out of his hands. Ha 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 ha! When he saw that, God Honling could not help but laugh. Desolate Marshal, don't do such useless things. This heavenly God lock is a great treasure of the God race. Even Dharma treasures can't shatter it. Your Creation Lotus platform is much inferior. Chapter 13:12. Shocking Phenomenon. Chapter 13:12. Shocking Phenomenon. Even when the experts of the primordial 6 races saw Su Zimo arrive beside Night Spirit, they did not panic. That was because they knew that as long as the heavenly God lock could not be unlocked, Night Spirit could not leave this place. Su Zimo knew that it was not because the Creation Lotus platform was not strong enough. It was because the original Creation Green Lotus was destroyed and now, there was only a single Lotus platform left. The difference in strength was naturally much greater. I don't believe that I can't break a lousy lock. With a single thought from Su Zimo, his Dragon True Body had already sensed it. Sensing that he did not have much dermic powers left in his body, he no longer released Barren and his glabella opened up with a bronze square tripod. This bronze square tripod was obtained by Su Zimo in the Great Qian ruins and its origin was unknown. Although the tripod was filled with cracks and was destroyed, its broken body was incomparably tough and no divine weapon could hurt it. Su Zimo had used this bronze square tripod before in Myriad Phenomenon City, and many cultivators had seen it before. After summoning the bronze square tripod, his relationship with the Dragon True Body would be affirmed and could not be hidden anymore. However, there were no other options at the moment and he could only use the bronze square tripod to try. The blood chi within the Dragon True Body surged as he raised the bronze square tripod and smashed it towards the heavenly God lock with all his might. Clang! There was a deafening sound. The heavenly God lock was intact and released a bedazzling golden light instead. The powerful recoil almost flipped the Dragon True Body over. How strong was the physique and bloodline of the Dragon True Body? Even so, his entire arm was numb from the shock and his bloodline was not working. Night Spirit's neck and limbs were pierced by many more spikes and fresh blood gushed out. However, he grit his teeth and did not make a single sound. Humph! God Hanling said proudly. There's no way a piece of scrap metal like yours can touch a treasure of the god race. The stronger you are, the stronger the recoil from the heavenly god lock. The moment he said that, God Hanling and the other experts of the Primordial 6 races closed in once more. Without Barren, the experts of the Primordial 6 races no longer had any reservations. All of them glared at Su Zimo, the dragon true body and night spirit in the center of the battlefield with murderous auras. The situation was turning increasingly dire. If they could not tide through this, all three of them would have to die here. That bronze square tripod looks familiar. I heard that Tao Lord Desolate Marshal once used that tripod to fight against the god race leader in Myriad Phenomenon City. What's the relationship between this scarlet-haired alien and Tao Lord Desolate Marshal? Some cultivators had already noticed something unusual. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and thought of a strategy. The more dangerous it was, the more he had to maintain his composure. Right then, a deep and hoarse voice sounded in Su Zimo's ears. Zimo, back off. It was Yen Beichen. Instinctively, Su Zimo retreated and looked at Yen Beichen. At that moment, Yen Beichen had already snapped out of his self-reproach and hatred. Wielding the hatred fiend saber, he strode over with pitch-black eyes and a torrential fiend chi. Su Zimo's heart stirred. God Hanling had once said that even a Mahayana patriarch's Dharma treasure could not shatter the heavenly god lock. However, the hatred fiend saber was not a Dharma treasure. It was an emperor weapon that was even stronger than that. An emperor weapon was once wielded by an emperor. Yen Beichen did not make any motions and raised his saber to slash. The hatred fiend saber transformed into a black streak of light and slashed towards the heavenly god lock. At the same time, the experts of the Primordial 6 races arrived and attacked one after another. Desolate Marshal, let's see what else you have. Let's kill that scarlet-haired beast first and see what it truly is. The experts of the Primordial 6 races roared murderously with pent-up frustrations. As primordial races, none of them had suffered such a loss before. They were forced back by a single dermic art. At that moment, Yen Beichen attacked and slashed towards the heavenly god lock. Su Zimo's 99 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was already covered in injuries after the battle, and could not defend against the experts of the Primordial 6 races. The eyes of the dragon true body burned brightly and his blood chi surged. A tsunami sound echoed as his aura rose continuously. Splash! Tsunami blood! What powerful blood chi! The experts of the Primordial 6 races felt their hearts skip a beat as well. Humph! God Hanling had a fearless expression as he said coldly, "It's just tsunami blood. What's there to fear? My bloodline has also been cultivated to this point." Splash! The sound of a tsunami echoed from God Hanling's body as well as his blood chi surged with a terrifying might. However, the aura of the dragon true body was still rising rapidly without any signs of stopping. Scarlet demonic chi rumbled around the dragon true body and ancient demon kings with shuddering gazes were swiftly conjured one after another from the blazing flames. Wild bovine demon king. Stone bear demon king. Anaconda demon king. Sanguine ape demon king. Divine steed demon king. Hell tiger demon king. Wind leopard demon king. Desolate ocean dragon king. Sea calming turtle. The 9 demon kings were born from the flames and descended one after another. They were filled with a powerful aura and had sharp claws and fangs. Their demon eyes shone with a violent glint as they circled around the dragon true body. Although there were only 9 demon kings, they were not disadvantaged in terms of aura against the encirclement of the experts of the Primordial 6 races. Bloodline phenomenon. The cultivators who fled far away could not help but turn back when they sensed the commotion and their expressions changed. It's Desolate Marshal. That scarlet-haired being is definitely Tao Lord Desolate Marshal. The bloodline phenomenon was way too shocking and Su Zimo was the only one in Tianhuang mainland who had released it before. Although the bloodline phenomenon before them seemed to have 2 more terrifying demon kings than the crowd knew, everyone knew that apart from Tao Lord Desolate Marshal, no one else could cultivate such a phenomenon. Could that scarlet-haired alien be a clone of Tao Lord Desolate Marshal? Pest! At the thought of that possibility, the cultivators gasped. That was way too terrifying. A single Tao Lord Desolate Marshal was already so powerful. Furthermore, the combat strength of that scarlet-haired alien was even more terrifying. If they were the same person, what sort of existence was that? It's really possible. A cultivator said sternly, "Don't forget that Tao Lord Desolate Marshal's dragon race bloodline vanished completely after the battle at the Tao inheritance ground. From the looks of it, there's a high chance that he condensed this clone using the bloodline of the dragon race. As expected of the strongest monster incarnate in history." On the battlefield, the experts of the Primordial 6 races were shocked as well. The bloodline phenomenon of the 9 demon kings before them was no less shocking than the Barren dermic art. Was that a bloodline phenomenon? What sort of bloodline phenomenon would create such a huge commotion such that 9 incomparably violent demon beasts would be released? Many of those demon beasts were from the most ordinary races. However, when they looked at the demon beasts, even the mighty figures of the Primordial 6 races felt their hearts skip a beat. Roar! Right then, the dragon true body opened its mouth and the 9 demon kings opened their mouths at the same time, releasing a deafening roar. The world went silent. The experts of the Primordial 6 races were so shocked that they lost their voices and even forgot to breathe. The Dharma characteristic Tao lords of the primordial races closest to the roar could not withstand it and bled from all 7 orifices. Their essence spirits were destroyed and they died on the spot with their corpses falling from midair. Chapter 13:13 Blood-Colored Butterfly. Chapter 13:13 Blood-Colored Butterfly. Although the bloodlines of the Primordial 6 races were noble and powerful, apart from the God race, none of the other Primordial 5 races had an expert that could cultivate a bloodline phenomenon. At a certain age, the God race would be able to form a bloodline phenomenon without cultivating. The purer the bloodline of the God race, the stronger the bloodline phenomenon condensed. That was also why the bloodline of the God race was so strong. Kill! God Hanling calmed down quickly and gave an order. Circulating his blood chi to its limits, a tall and majestic pyramid appeared beneath him. It was a few thousand feet tall and shone with endless golden light, exuding an unrestrained might that was ancient and mysterious. Beneath the pyramid, all living beings of the 10,000 races prostrated. There were hundreds of millions of them densely and there was no end in sight. Every single living being clasped their palms together and looked up at the pyramid above their heads, chanting prayers with pious expressions. Thin golden threads extended from the heads of the millions of living beings and converged at the top of the pyramid where a godlike existence stood. It was God Hanling. Bang! 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 The remaining God race beings released their bloodline phenomenons one after another as well. Instantly, dozens of ancient pyramids descended and hovered in the void, causing the world to tremble. The cultivators watching from afar were shocked. In a daze, they seemed to have returned to the tragic era of the primordial era where they were enslaved by the God race. A fear that came from the depths of their bloodlines grew in their hearts. Even some conjoint body mighty figures had pale expressions and felt suffocated. In the primordial era, humans were the most inferior and insignificant beings that knelt on the ground with their lives equivalent to ants. Right now, that scene has reappeared. Even though the cultivators had already fled far away, they still felt a tremendous pressure after the dozens of pyramids descended. Some of the cultivators even had the urge to kneel on the ground and kowtow. None of the cultivators could imagine the pressure on Su Zimo, who was at the center of the battlefield surrounded by dozens of ancient pyramids. No matter how strong that scarlet-haired alien was, he was only at the Dharma characteristic realm. How could a bloodline phenomenon of the Dharma characteristic realm defend against the phenomenons of so many God race beings? Furthermore, the God race had a few mighty figures. Monster incarnate. So what if you've managed to cultivate a bloodline phenomenon? In the face of the God race's phenomenons, you bunch of beasts are nothing but worthless dung. God Hanling shouted. There's no need to waste your breath on him. Kill him as soon as possible. The Golden Crow Third Prince said loudly. Bang, bang, bang. Almost at the same time, the Primordial 6 races attacked and dozens of ancient pyramids charged towards the dragon true body with a massive aura. Naturally, the 9 demon kings were fearless as they moved at the same time and clashed against the dozens of pyramids. the wild bovine plowed the heavens and overturned a pyramid with its horns raised. The stone bear was muscular and leaned its massive body upwards, slamming into the pyramid and almost shattering it into pieces with cracks appearing everywhere. The anaconda coiled around a pyramid and spiraled upwards, devouring the entire pyramid with its mouth wide open. The sanguine ape thumped his chest and stomped his feet. He strode forward and raised his fist with a torrential aura. Divine steed charge, hell tiger bite, wind leopard shuttling, dragon king's tail whip and spirit turtle sea calming. The 9 demon kings released shocking combat strength and blocked the dozens of pyramids. The clash between the bloodline phenomenons was earth-shaking. However, the situation was extremely unfavorable for Xueqi. That was because he was not only facing the god race. There were also experts of the other primordial races. Although the 9 demon kings defended against the dozens of pyramids temporarily, the experts of the other primordial races seized the opportunity to attack and forced the 9 demon kings to retreat in defeat. 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. There were too many experts of the primordial 6 races and the 9 demon kings could not defend against them either. Clang! Right then, the sound of metal clashing echoed from the side. It was extremely crisp and ear-piercing, like a sharp sword piercing through one's eardrums. The hatred fiend's saber had already struck the heavenly god lock. As though it sensed something, the heavenly god lock burst forth with a bedazzling golden light. A powerful energy surged into the hatred fiend's saber, wanting to deflect it. That power triggered the hatred fiend's saber as well. Endless fiend chi emanated from the hatred fiend's saber. It was pitch black and corroded the heavenly god lock continuously. The 2 weapons began to fight and neither was willing to bow down. Although the hatred fiend's saber was an emperor weapon, it was difficult for Yen Beichen to unleash its true power given his current strength. On the other hand, it was the repeated triggering of the hatred fiend's saber by the heavenly god lock that triggered the emperor weapon instead. This was no longer a fight between cultivators, but between 2 different weapons. Xueqi believed that the heavenly god lock was definitely not a match for the hatred fiend's saber. However, it would require time to sever the heavenly god lock as well. On the other side, the 9 demon kings could no longer hold on. Everyone, let's join forces. Those few beast phenomenons are already at the end of their flight. God Hanling declared with a torrential aura. Bang! The moment he said that, his pyramid descended and shattered the desolate ocean dragon king. The phenomenon dissipated and turned into scarlet demonic chi. Bang! 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 One after another, the remaining 8 demon kings collapsed before long. The dragon true body had a cold expression as he suddenly opened his mouth and took a deep breath. His chest puffed up and he devoured the demonic chi formed by the 9 demon kings before exhaling slowly. Scarlet demonic chi surged and changed around the dragon true body. When the 6 races saw the 9 demon kings dissipate, they moved one after another and charged towards the dragon true body. Just as they were about to close in, the expressions of God Hanling, the Golden Crow Third Prince, Wu Xie and the other mighty figures changed and they stopped instinctively. They felt a strong sense of danger and their scalps tingled. The rumbling demonic chi around the dragon true body seemed to be nurturing an extremely terrifying existence. Don't go over! God Hanling shouted hurriedly. They were able to sense such danger because they had already cultivated to the conjoint body realm. However, many Dharma characteristic Tao lords of the primordial races were fearless and continued charging towards Xueqi. By the time they heard God Hanling's reminder, it was already too late. Right in front of them, demonic chi surged behind the dragon true body and a blood-colored butterfly gradually appeared. It spread its blood-colored wings with 2 bright moons imprinted on them, looking at the beings of the primordial 6 races like a pair of cold eyes. The blood-colored butterfly was only around 10 feet wide. Compared to the pyramid that was a few thousand feet tall behind God Hanling and the others, it was much smaller like a speck of dust. However, the moment the blood-colored butterfly descended, the entire heaven and earth valley fell into a dead silence. Thud! Thud! Some cultivators who were watching from afar did not kneel when the 9 demon kings descended and managed to survive as well when the ancient pyramid descended. However, when the blood-colored butterfly descended, those cultivators could not hold on any longer. Their bloodlines froze and their legs went limp as they knelt on the ground one after another. A hallucination even rose in the hearts of the cultivators. The beings of the primordial races, taboos, conjoint body mighty figures and Mahayana patriarchs were all ants before the blood-colored butterfly. If there was a god in this world, it would have to be this blood butterfly. Chapter 13-14, Final Trump Card. Chapter 13-14, Final Trump Card. What's that? The Golden Crow Third Prince's voice was trembling with a bewildered expression. The experts of the primordial 6 races were silent. Even in their inherited memories, they had never seen a bloodline phenomenon as such, let alone the blood-colored butterfly. Suddenly, the wings of the blood-colored butterfly flapped. Its movements were extremely light and almost imperceptible. If not for the powerful eyesight of the experts of the primordial 6 races, they would not have been able to see it clearly. However, that slight flap of its wings created a shocking storm. The surrounding void distorted, changed, collapsed and caved in. The remaining pyramids created by the mighty figures of the god race shook continuously as well. Sand and gravel rolled down as cracks appeared on the pyramids. Bang! Boom! Boom! The pyramids that were a few thousand feet tall collapsed completely in the blink of an eye, turning into dust that was destroyed instantly. The blood-colored butterfly was the ultimate phenomenon of the Dragon True Body's bloodline. Back in Myriad Phenomenon City, half of the blood-colored butterfly's descent was illusory and incorporeal. Right now, the Dragon True Body managed to condense 2 more Demon Kings to make up a total of 9. Most of the blood-colored butterfly was also corporeal by now, and its aura was even more terrifying. Poof, poof, poof. Some of the Tao lords of the primordial races closest to the Dragon True Body exploded into blood mists and their essence spirits were destroyed. That power was absolutely destructive for them. The blood-colored butterfly merely flapped its wings and more than 100 Tao lords of the primordial races died. The entire void was dyed red and a rain of blood poured down from the skies. God Han Ling, the Golden Crow Third Prince and the others were slightly further away. Coupled with the fact that they were at the conjoint body realm, they did not suffer such a terrifying impact. Even so, a few mighty figures of the primordial races shuddered as though they were struck by lightning. Their faces were pale as they spat out a mouthful of blood with dispirited expressions. The mighty figures could not even control their bodies and swayed. Although they survived, it was clear that they were crippled. Far away, Heavenly Secrets was sandwiched in the crowd as he watched. Unlike the shock in the eyes of the other cultivators, although Heavenly Secrets was surprised as well, he still had a faint smile on his face. Interesting. He murmured softly, "This desolate marshal is even more troublesome than I imagined. However, this is good as well. The more you guys kill and the more intense the battle, the more living beings will die. Tao Lord Desolate Marshal is truly a perfect chess piece." A hint of bloodthirst flashed through the depths of Heavenly Secrets' eyes briefly. On the battlefield. Snap. There was a crisp sound like thunder. God Han Ling sensed something and shifted his gaze to his heavenly god lock. Instantly, his expression darkened. In the end, the heavenly god lock could not hold out in its fight against the hatred fiend saber. The heavenly god lock could not defend against the sharpness of the hatred fiend saber at all. With the chains shattered, the iron hoops no longer had dermic powers to support them and were cut into 2 by Yen Beichen, falling from Night Spirit's neck and limbs. Su Zimo was delighted when he saw that. Night Spirit was finally free. However, this taboo that once ruled over the primordial era laid limply on the ground motionlessly. Night Spirit was way too severely injured. His limbs and neck were already mangled and his wounds were rotten after being locked by the heavenly god lock. No matter how strong Night Spirit's bloodline was and his regeneration capabilities were, he would have to recuperate for a long time. But no matter what, as long as Night Spirit was free, Su Zimo had a way of escaping from this place with Night Spirit. Monster incarnate, you killed so many of my clansmen. I'm going to make you pay with blood. Right then, God Han Ling, the Golden Crow Third Prince and the other experts of the primordial races roared and attacked one after another, unleashing terrifying attacks at the blood-colored butterfly. The Golden Crow Third Prince's body burned with the scorching sun god fire and he transformed into a gigantic fireball that burned with flames. The other Golden Crows released the same move. Instantly, it was as though blazing suns appeared beneath the firmaments with streaks of flames. Raging fire surged towards the blood-colored butterfly. The dharmic powers in the void were already dried up. Heavenly God slash. Under the lead of God Han Ling, many god race beings conjured hand seals at the same time and conjured a gigantic sword before them that they gripped with both hands. They slashed towards the blood-colored butterfly with endless sharpness. Hum, hum, hum. Many heavenly eyes opened up and countless mysterious runes appeared. Chaos chi filled the air as though this was the origin of the universe's creation. A series of dark lights tore through the air. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Thick blood vines coiled towards the blood-colored butterfly, filling the air with blood chi as the wind howled. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The Rakshasa race relied on their terrifying movement speed to dance in midair. Wielding sharp sabers in both hands, they could swoop down at any moment. Many witches chanted and waved the bone staff in their hands, setting up incantations on the blood-colored butterfly. The primordial 6 races had almost used their full strength. The blood-colored butterfly flapped its wings once more. A storm surged and collided violently against the attacks of the primordial 6 races. Boom! A deafening bang sounded. Su Zimo, who was in the center of the battlefield, had just helped Night Spirit up. However, he could not steady himself and was overturned on the ground instantly. Even the 99 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic beside him dissipated on the spot from the impact of the aftershock. The blood-colored butterfly gradually dispersed. No matter how strong that bloodline phenomenon was, the cultivation realm of the dragon true body was a clear disadvantage. It was no match for so many experts of the primordial races. The dragon true body shuddered. This time round, many of the dragon scales on his body fell off and blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. The impact on the dragon true body was not small and his organs were already shaken. If this was a battle royale, the dragon true body would not have been able to withstand such terrifying and ferocious attacks with his movement technique, shuttling back and forth. But now, his green lotus true body and night spirit were right behind him. If he were to leave, both his green lotus true body and night spirit would die on the spot. Thankfully, night spirit was already released by the time they defended against that attack. Brother Yen, follow me. Pulling night spirit along, Su Zimo withdrew a crumpled beast hide from his storage bag that was etched with mysterious and complicated patterns. This was a treasure given to him by an elder of ancient array sect before Su Zimo entered the Tao inheritance ground. There was an incomplete formation from the primordial era etched on it. Although the formation was extremely complicated, if one could comprehend it, they could break through the restrictions of space and teleport cultivators millions of miles away from the spot. It wouldn't be a problem for them to even cross the entire Tianhuang mainland. Of course, the formation was incomplete and had a huge flaw. Back then, the Elder of Ancient Array sect released it once before, but none of the cultivators who were teleported out returned. Nobody knew where they were teleported to. In the Tao inheritance ground, Su Zimo received more than 30 inheritances and there was a legacy of an array formation grandmaster. After 5,000 years of consolidation cultivation in the Tao inheritance ground, he had already comprehended the formation on the beast hide. That damaged beast hide was his final trump card. The Everlasting Sacred Sovereign. Chapter 1315. Another Wave. Chapter 1315. Another Wave. Su Zimo channeled his dharmic powers and injected it into the damaged beast hide. The formation patterns shone brightly and released a mysterious energy fluctuation. Brother Yen, Immortal Sword is dead. Leave this place with me first. Su Zimo persuaded again. More than half of the experts of the primordial 6 races had already died. However, there were more than 300 remaining and there were more than 20 mighty figures among them. Even Yen Beichen could not defend against that power. Furthermore, heavenly secrets had already vanished in the chaos and his whereabouts were unknown. It was extremely dangerous for Yen Beichen to stay here as well, and it would be better for him to leave with Su Zimo. Yen Beichen frowned slightly and hesitated. Although Immortal Sword was already dead, there were still many more people that he wanted to kill. Immortal Sword's death alone was not enough to compensate for Qin Pianran's death. Right then, Su Zimo's expression changed. The formation patterns on the beast hide were completely activated and rich dermic powers lingered around it. However, it seemed like it was met with a powerful obstacle and could not be condensed. How could this be? Su Zimo's expression changed slightly. Although this was the first time he activated this formation, he had already comprehended it completely back in the Dao inheritance ground, and there was no way he would make a mistake. Ha 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 ha. The Golden Crow Third Prince laughed in an extremely smug manner. Desolate Marshal, don't think about spatial teleportation. The space here has long been sealed by us and you can't escape. He roared. Heavenly Secrets, who was hidden in the crowd, smirked with a mocking expression. It was his idea to seal the space of Heaven and Earth Valley. Initially, when they heard that suggestion, the experts of the Primordial 6 races thought nothing of it, nor did they care. In their opinion, there was no need for them to mobilize such a large force against a puny human cultivator, even if he was the strongest monster incarnate in history. How could hundreds of experts of the Primordial races not suppress a Dharma characteristic of the human race? Under Heavenly Secrets' persistence, he persuaded the Golden Crow Third Prince and the others to join forces with him to seal the space of Heaven and Earth Valley. Back in the Dao inheritance ground, Su Zimo used a major transference talisman to escape and survive from a half-martial ancestor. Heavenly Secrets would definitely not make the same mistake. Su Zimo's heart sank when he heard the Golden Crow Third Prince's words. A spatial seal meant that the formation on the beast hide could not be condensed, and items such as the minor transference talisman and major transference talisman were useless as well. If Su Zimo could not be teleported out, it would be difficult for his two true bodies to break out of the encirclement of the Primordial 6 races, let alone bring out the severely injured Night Spirit. This was equivalent to cutting off Su Zimo's escape path completely. Apart from immense strength, one had to locate the spatial nodes in order to break through the spatial seal. The current situation was dangerous and the battle had yet to end. How could Su Zimo have the time to do that against the Primordial 6 races? Furthermore, even if he could locate the spatial nodes, given his strength and the power of his dragon true body and Yen Beichen, it would be difficult for them to dispel the spatial seal. At that moment, God Han Ling, the Golden Crow Third Prince and the others charged forward once more. Instantly, the situation turned extremely unfavorable for Su Zimo. First, leave. Don't bother about me. Night Spirit said weakly with half-opened eyes. No way. I'm only leaving together with you. Su Zimo rejected without hesitation, and his tone was resolute. The dragon true body took a deep breath of air and a divine light burst forth from his glabella, entering the firmaments instantly. The power of divine power spread. Boom! A loud bang sounded from the skies. The clouds exploded and a gigantic thick stone pillar descended rapidly from the skies with a terrifying might. The stone pillar was grayish-white and there was a 5-clawed divine dragon climbing on it. It exuded an ancient aura and possessed a rampant might that could suppress the 10,000 races. This was the second innate divine power that the dragon true body had awakened in the Dragon Bone Valley. The gigantic ancestral dragon divine pillar was more than 10,000 feet long and required hundreds of people to wrap around it. It descended and suppressed the experts of the Primordial 6 races that were charging over. The pressure caused the experts of the Primordial 6 races to feel suffocated. Poof, poof, poof. Some Dharma characteristic Dao lords of the Primordial races could not defend against it at all and were crushed into sludge by the ancestral dragon divine pillar, dying on the spot. Only some mighty figures of the Primordial races could defend against this gigantic ancestral dragon divine pillar with their combined strength. Even so, dozens of beings of the Primordial races were killed by the ancestral dragon divine pillar. There were only slightly more than 200 of the Primordial 6 races remaining. Ancestral dragon divine pillar. Suddenly, a sinister voice sounded from the experts of the Primordial races. Wu Xie's expression was dark as he glared at the dragon true body fixedly. Initially, he was merely suspicious. However, he no longer had any doubts when he saw the appearance of the ancestral dragon divine pillar. Back when the dragon true body awakened this divine power, he was watching from the side. Wu Xie believed that only the young master of the dragon race could release this terrifying innate divine power. He said slowly, "It's indeed you. Stop hiding. You're the young master of the DRA. Old dog." the dragon true body suddenly roared and interrupted Wu Xie. Although his dragon true body could be exposed, Su Zimo did not want to implicate the dragon race and cause them to be given trouble by the other primordial races. I have to kill Wu Xie. A ruthless glint flashed through the eyes of the dragon true body. If Wu Xie was not dead, the fact that the dragon true body was the young master of the dragon race could not be hidden. The dragon race would definitely be embroiled in this matter and might encounter a calamity. Suddenly, Su Zimo heard a voice. The voice was very soft and almost inaudible. However, it sounded familiar. That voice merely said a single word: break. Break. Su Zimo was stunned. What was broken? Immediately after, Su Zimo felt the beast hide in his palm heat up and an unusual fluctuation spread. The dermic powers that were initially hovering around the hide were gathering rapidly. A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. The spatial seal was broken. He was elated. At that moment, the primordial 6 races had just clashed head-on with the innate divine power of the ancestral dragon divine pillar, and no one noticed that the spatial seal had been broken. It was as though no one else had heard that voice apart from Su Zimo. However, Heavenly Secrets, who was in the crowd watching coldly from the sidelines, noticed Su Zimo's abnormality. He narrowed his eyes and sensed carefully. His expression could not help but change as he said in disbelief, "The spatial seal was broken? How is that possible?" Heavenly Secrets' eyes flickered and he had a bewildered expression. Although there were some variables in the situation today, everything was under his control the entire time. But now, Heavenly Secrets suddenly felt that the situation was getting out of control. The battle was intense and there was no day for Desolate Marshal to locate the spatial nodes to break the spatial seal. Furthermore, Desolate Marshal's power was not enough to break through the spatial nodes, not even with the Azura. In other words, someone else had broken through the spatial nodes. All of a sudden, Heavenly Secrets shuddered and his expression turned extremely terrible when he thought of a possibility. Chapter 1316, The Oriole. Chapter 1316, The Oriole. Heavenly Secrets thought of something. Purple Flame, the master of Hellfire Hall who cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, tried to absorb the bloodlines of the battlefield to recover his blood chi essence but to no avail. At that time, Heavenly Secrets was already puzzled. He knew that Purple Flame had not cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra to its peak. However, it was definitely not to the point where he would fail in absorbing the bloodlines. Initially, he wanted to step in secretly to prevent the bloodline refinement process of Purple Flame. Unexpectedly, Purple Flame failed for some unknown reason and that saved him the trouble. Now that he thought about it, coupled with the connection from the break of the spatial seal, Heavenly Secrets realized that another expert was hiding in Heaven and Earth Valley. Furthermore, it was highly likely that the person was here for the same motive as him. Suddenly, a roar sounded beside him. "Heavenly Secrets, what are you hiding here for?" The shout was extremely loud and Heavenly Secrets was alarmed. He turned and slapped a cultivator on the chest, killing the latter instantly. The cultivator had a lost expression and looked at Heavenly Secrets in disbelief. Even till his death, he did not know why the person before him would suddenly injure him. The crowd dispersed. "No, I killed the wrong person." Heavenly Secrets felt his scalp tingle. It was clear that the cultivator who died earlier merely shouted because he was bewitched. The mastermind had not appeared at all. Heavenly Secrets retracted his smile with a grim expression. He could not believe that as a cultivator of Enigma Palace, his movements were being led by the nose and he was in an unprecedented passive position. All of a sudden, Heavenly Secrets sensed something and felt a chill run down his spine, as though he was targeted by an extremely dangerous existence. Secrets turned around slowly and looked over. On the battlefield far away, a tall and burly figure was speeding over with a saber. His white hair danced and his eyes were pitch black with a murderous expression. The Azura, Yen Beichen. Initially, Yen Beichen could not discover Heavenly Secrets who was hidden in the crowd. However, that sudden shout on the other side caught his attention. Thereafter, Heavenly Secrets attacked violently and the chaotic crowd dispersed, allowing Yen Beichen to locate him with ease. Initially, Yen Beichen was still hesitant about whether he should leave with Su Zimo. Now that Heavenly Secrets was not far away, he no longer hesitated and charged forward with the Hatred Fiend's saber. Heavenly Secrets, let's see where else you can hide. Dang! Yen Beichen was like a resurrected fiend emperor as he strode forward with a murderous aura. In the blink of an eye, he arrived before Heavenly Secrets and slashed with his saber. Heavenly Secrets waved his folding fan in reverse and blocked the Hatred Fiend's saber. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. Heavenly Secrets' arm sank. Although the Asura who inherited the Hatred Sutra had just entered the conjoint body realm, there were not many people who could defend against him in terms of combat strength. Heavenly Secrets believed that if it was a one-on-one fight, his capabilities were not weaker than God Han Ling and the Golden Crow Third Prince. However, he still felt that things were extremely troublesome against Yen Beichen. That was because Yen Beichen was a complete lunatic. He was not afraid of death or injury. He was willing to endure a blow from Heavenly Secrets just so he could carve a bloody hole in the latter's body. In the blink of an eye, both parties exchanged more than 10 blows. Yen Beichen was fighting with his life in exchange for an internecine outcome. Heavenly Secrets' folding fan had once struck Yen Beichen heavily on the leg, crippling his left leg and breaking his tendons and bones. However, as though he could not feel any pain, Yen Beichen's expression turned increasingly ruthless and the hatred fiend chi around him intensified. There was no way Heavenly Secrets knew that for Yen Beichen, the pain on his physical body was a mere fraction of the pain in his heart. Pain on his body would only serve to lessen the pain in his heart slightly. Heavenly Secrets' cultivation had already reached the perfected conjoint body realm. In terms of pure strength, he was even stronger than Yen Beichen. However, after more than 10 rounds, Heavenly Secrets truly did not want to fight anymore. Although dozens of Yen Beichen's bones were broken by Heavenly Secrets, he was still fearless and fought with a crippled leg. Heavenly Secrets was also covered in injuries. The most serious injury was a saber wound on his left abdomen. Thankfully, he retreated in time. Otherwise, he would have been pierced by that attack. As time passed by, the might of the Hatred Fiend's saber gradually revealed itself. The Hatred Fiend chi could even taint and corrode an ancient unique treasure like the mystic Magnet Mountain and seal the latter's powers. When the blade sliced through Heavenly Secrets' wound, what sort of damage would the body receive with the remnant Hatred Fiend chi? Heavenly Secrets could clearly see that the wounds on his body were already rotting. Asura, why are you looking for me instead of saving Desolate Marshal? Heavenly Secrets was enraged, but he suppressed it forcefully and questioned in a deep voice. I'll have you pay with your life. Yen Beichen said word by word. His gaze was ice-cold and seemed as though it could devour Heavenly Secrets alive. Heavenly Secrets realized that it was impossible for him to break free from Yen Beichen easily. If he were to run with his escape technique, he would naturally be able to shake off Yen Beichen. However, all his previous efforts of setting up this trap here would be wasted. Since that's the case, I'll send you down to reunite with that woman. A blood glint flashed through Heavenly Secrets' eyes as he channeled his mental cultivation technique. His body seemed to have transformed into a gigantic black hole as he absorbed the rich bloodlines in the battlefield continuously. Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Heavenly Secrets also knew the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Furthermore, the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra that he cultivated was clearly much stronger than the one released by Purple Flame. Heavenly Secrets racked his brains and implicated many factions, including the Primordial 6 races and Taboo, to make use of this fight for the Dharma characteristic ranking. In fact, even Dao Lord Desolate Marshal was his chess piece in this shocking scheme. He wanted to absorb all the bloodlines here. The more living beings that died in Heaven and Earth Valley, and the richer their bloodlines were, the greater the benefits for him. Therefore, when he saw Purple Flame channeling the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra to absorb the bloodlines of this place, he naturally wanted to interrupt the latter. That was equivalent to snatching food from his mouth. Heavenly Secrets would not allow anyone to taint the bloodlines of this place. Initially, he wanted to hide in the dark and waited for this battle to end before channeling his fiend technique to absorb and refine the bloodlines of this place. But now, Yen Beichen was pushing him too hard and he couldn't care less. Heavenly Secrets had just absorbed a little of the bloodlines when his expression changed starkly. His connection to the bloodlines on the ground was suddenly severed by an external force. The mastermind had struck once again. It's him. Suddenly, Heavenly Secrets recalled the identity of that person and could not help but stare with widened eyes, trembling in rage. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had never lost his composure as such. That was because he just realized that this shocking trap that he painstakingly set up to amass such a rich power of bloodline might very well just be paving the road for others. The Oriole stalks the mantis as it stalks the grasshopper. He was merely the mantis. The mastermind was the true Oriole. Arg! Heavenly Secrets shouted in rage. Coupled with his injuries, his blood chi surged uncontrollably and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 1317, Life-Severing Curse. Chapter 1317, Life-Severing Curse. The battlefield was ever-changing. The spatial seal was broken and Heavenly Secrets appeared. Yen Beichen chased after Heavenly Secrets and a huge battle broke out. On the other side, the formation patterns on the beast hide lit up and the teleportation formation gradually took shape. A gigantic dermic power vortex appeared vaguely, pitch black and deep with an unknown destination. The dermic power vortex was a spatial tunnel formed by the beast hide formation patterns. As long as one leaped into it, they could break through the spatial restraints and leave this place. Su Zimo could leave at any moment. However, he had something else to do before leaving. It was to kill Wu Xie. He had to kill this variable or there would be endless trouble in the future. Everyone, hurry and stop Desolate Marshal. His spatial tunnel is about to form and we can't let him escape. God Hanling shouted. Even without his reminder, the other experts of the primordial races had already made their move. If Desolate Marshal were to leave with the primordial taboo, the consequences would be way too terrifying. We have to kill these three beasts here. A mighty figure of the Bloodvine race said sternly. The primordial 6 races suffered immense losses in this battle, and the Bloodvine race suffered the most. When the dragon true body descended with Barren, the Dharma characteristic Tao lords of the Bloodvine race were almost completely annihilated and died after a few breaths. The remaining few mighty figures of the Bloodvine race naturally hated the dragon true body to the core. You want to kill me? The dragon true body had a cold expression and leaped up. Instead of retreating, he charged towards the crowd of the primordial 6 races and said coldly, I'm the one that wants to kill you guys. He charged towards Wu Xie with a cold killing intent in his eyes that were sharp as daggers. Humph! Wu Xie had long sensed it and retreated swiftly with a sneer. Why? You want to silence me because I know of your secret? As long as he distanced himself from the dragon true body, the dragon true body would fall into the encirclement of the primordial 6 races and fight separately from the green lotus true body. At that time, the green lotus true body would only have 2 options. He could stay here where both true bodies could very likely die. Or, he could leave with Night Spirit first. However, it was obvious what would happen to the dragon true body. You're still trying to escape. The dragon true body focused his gaze and his glabella shone. His massive spirit consciousness condensed continuously and a shuddering spirit consciousness fluctuation spread. A palm-sized scarlet scale slowly floated out from the glabella of the dragon true body. It was in the shape of a crescent and looked ordinary. However, when the dragon scale appeared, the entire world seemed to tremble. It was as though space had frozen. The experts of the primordial 6 races that were charging towards Su Zimo paused one after another. The pupils of the Golden Crow Third Prince, God Hanling and the others constricted. They could sense an extremely terrifying aura from that dragon scale. The only essence spirit secret skill in the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, reverse scale. Ever since the dragon true body cultivated, he had only released this essence spirit secret skill twice. That was because the essence spirit secret skill was way too terrifying and the elders of the dragon race forbade him from using it in the Dragon Bone Valley. The dragon scale appeared and flew towards Wu Xie slowly. It was not fast. However, for some reason, Wu Xie could not increase the distance between him and the dragon scale no matter how he retreated. Instead, the distance decreased. It's just an essence spirit secret skill. What's there to fear? A golden light shone on God Hanling's glabella as he released the God race's essence spirit secret skill as well. Hum, hum, hum. The experts of the Primordial 6 races attacked, and Essence Spirit secret skills burst forth one after another, charging towards the dragon scale. You have a death wish for using an Essence Spirit secret skill in front of the witch race. A few mighty figures of the witch race hollered and released their Essence Spirit secret skills right away. The Primordial 9 races each had their own specialties. In terms of the cultivation of their essence spirits and secret skills, the witch race was the strongest. Among the Primordial 9 races, the witch race had an ordinary bloodline and the weakest physique. Their lifespans were not long either. However, the reason why they could dominate the Primordial era and be one of the Primordial 9 races was because of the many secret skills in their essence spirits. Not only were those secret skills strong, they were also sinister and impossible to defend against. Essence Spirit secret skills descended one after another and struck the Scarlet Dragon scale. Immediately after, a shocking scene unfolded. The moment the Essence Spirit secret skills made contact with the dragon scale, the experts of the Primordial races that attacked fell from midair one after another. Their life forces dissipated before their bodies even landed on the ground. Dead. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 experts of the Primordial races who attacked were killed without exception. Even God Hanling's eyes were widened and his expression was stiff. Although there were no injuries on his face, his essence spirit was already shattered in his consciousness. God Hanling's head tilted to the side and he fell from midair, dead. Anyone who touched the reverse scale of a dragon would die. That dragon scale must not be touched. Anyone who touched it would die. Of course, with so many essence spirit secret skills attacking the reverse scale, the dragon scale was already filled with cracks and was on the brink of collapse. At that moment, the reverse scale had already arrived before Wu Xie. Right from the beginning, Wu Xie did not attack and merely wanted to dodge. That was because he had lived for so many years and had a deep understanding of essence spirits. He could sense an extremely dangerous aura coming from that scale. That was the reason why he did not attack. But now, Wu Xie had nowhere to run. Good. Wu Xie said coldly, "You won't be able to live either after killing me. Both your clones can die together." In Wu Xie's consciousness, his dark green essence spirit expanded continuously and cracks appeared on his body. He was about to explode. Life-severing curse. Wu Xie hollered. In his consciousness, his essence spirit exploded and released an extremely terrifying and massive spirit consciousness that condensed a forbidden technique of the witch race. The life-severing curse was a forbidden skill in the witch race. That was because the prerequisite of releasing the life-severing curse was for one's essence spirit to self-destruct. The instant before self-destructing, one would obtain an incomparably massive spirit consciousness to complete the life-severing curse. It could be said that the curse would exchange one's life for another. The expressions of the Golden Crow Third Prince and the others changed at the mention of the life-severing curse. In the Primordial era, although the witch race had a weak physique and bloodline, none of the other races were willing to provoke them. That was because some of the secret skills of the witch race were done by sacrificing one's life. Once the witch race went berserk, the other races would not be able to withstand it as well. For example, the life-severing curse released by the self-destruction of a conjoint body mighty figure like Wu Xie was something that even a half-martial ancestor expert of the Primordial races might not be able to defend against. Although Wu Xie knew that he was going to die, he wanted the Dragon True Body and Green Lotus True Body to die with him. The life-severing curse descended into the consciousnesses of the Dragon True Body and Green Lotus True Body instantly. It appeared out of nowhere and targeted the essence spirit directly. It was impossible to defend against. Even though the Green Lotus True Body carried an essence spirit dermic weapon like the Ming Wang prayer beads, it could not defend against the life-severing curse. That was the terror of the witch race. Die. Wu Xie's essence spirit self-destructed and his remnant spirit consciousness was still yelling wildly with a menacing expression. He widened his eyes, wanting to see the tragic outcome of Su Zimo's two true bodies. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.